Part 1. You're not ready for this. You think you are, but you're not. You're about to be dropped barefoot, disoriented, and likely dehydrated into one of the first human civilizations ever recorded. And no, there won't be any apps to help you. Hello everyone, tonight, we're going to do something brave. We're traveling back in time farther than most people dare to imagine. To a place wedged between two rivers you've probably heard about in geography class, the Tigris and Euphrates. That's right. Welcome to ancient Mesopotamia, land of mud bricks, mystery and mandatory worship. You might think the past was simpler, but out here simple means waking up in a reed hut with a rat crawling across your leg and a scorpion watching from the ceiling. It means listening for angry gods in the wind and hoping today isn't the day a drought ruins your barley crop. It means learning very quickly that if you don't know what you're doing, you won't survive past lunch. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get down to business tonight. You blink into the pale Mesopotamian dawn. The sky is a pink smear over cracked earth and river mist. You're lying on a coarse mat woven from reeds harvested nearby, and your back already aches from sleeping on it. You sit up slowly, instantly regretting that decision. The smell hits you, smoke, sweat, wet mud, and something sour you can't quite identify. Maybe fermented goat milk, maybe your feet. The air is thick, not just with heat but with tension. There's a low hum outside, livestock, bleeding pots, clanking, distant shouting. You crawl to the threshold of your hut made of mud brick and date palm branches and peek out. This is Uruk, or maybe Lagash, or Eridu. It doesn't really matter. What matters is you're in the middle of a city that's been growing wall by wall for centuries. You can feel the hum of 5000-year-old urgency vibrating through the dirt. The streets are narrow and unpaved. Every footstep kicks up a puff of dust. You shuffle past neighbors already sweeping their doorsteps with bundles of rushes. One woman stares at you like you've forgotten something important. Spoiler, you have. Taxes. You feel a sudden tap on your shoulder. You turn to find a man in a linen tunic that's whiter than seems fair. He holds a clay tablet with a series of angry little wedges etched in neat rows cuneiform, the world's earliest spreadsheet. He doesn't speak. He just points to your door and the symbol for barley owed. You owe the temple 3 measures. You have one, and that's when you realize you're not just visiting this civilization. You live here now. You mutter something about next week's harvest, but he's already walking away. You'll need to figure that out later. Maybe by stealing some barley from your cousin's field. Just don't get caught, or you'll be facing one of Hammurabi's charming punishments, like public drowning, or having your hands chopped off, or public drowning with your chopped off hands. You step back inside to find your daily tunic crumpled on the floor. It's scratchy, it's sweaty, and it smells like it belongs to someone named Ugalim, but it's yours. You pull it over your head and tie it with a rope. Congratulations, you're now dressed like a proper Mesopotamian laborer, albeit one with absolutely no idea what happens next. Outside, a group of children chase each other with sticks. One pauses to squint at you, then shouts something that sounds suspiciously like "filthy foreigner." Welcome to the neighborhood. Your stomach growls. It's time for breakfast. If you were upper class, you might get honey cakes or dried figs, but you're going to have barley porridge so thin it qualifies as soup in most countries. Maybe a fermented fish paste spread on a hunk of yesterday's bread if you're lucky. You chew in silence, squatting near your doorway. The bread is dense and full of grit. Literally. They grind their flour with stone, and nobody bothers to filter out the bits of rock. Most people here have dental issues by the age of 20. You probably will too. Best get used to the idea of soft food. As you eat, someone shuffles past your hut, dragging a wooden sled loaded with sacks of grain. No wheels here. Not for regular folks. The wheel exists, but good luck affording a cart. You finish eating, and notice your feet are already caked in dust and sweat. It's barely 8 a.m. and the sun is climbing fast. Your taskmaster will be looking for you soon. Today, you're scheduled to help dig out the irrigation trench. Again, it's not glamorous, it's not fun, but it's your job and your survival depends on the canal staying unclogged. You grab a crude bronze shovel and make your way to the edge of the city. On the way, you pass a ziggurat. It looms in the distance like a giant wedding cake left out in the sun for too long. You hear chanting, maybe a sacrifice, maybe just morning prayers. Either way, you keep your head down. A man stumbles by with a swollen face and yellow eyes. You step aside quickly. Disease is rampant here. No plumbing, no antibiotics, no clue what a virus is. Historians still debate whether ancient Mesopotamians understood the concept of contagion. Most of the time, they blamed demons. You finally arrive at the canal. It smells worse than usual. A dead fish bobs near the edge, and something that might once have been a dog floats face down in the shallows. You get to work digging, hauling, and trying not to gag. A small joke passes between two workers, something about a priest's bald head resembling a sun-dried squash. You laugh, lightly, carefully. You've heard stories of people who laughed too loud and were reported for impiety. The hours stretch on. Your hands blister. Your back screams. A cloud of dust chokes the horizon. And this is just the first half of the day. You stop, stretch, and glance around. And for just a second, you wonder how humanity ever made it out of here alive. Part 2. Your break doesn't last long. Someone yells your name, or at least the name you've inherited, for the day, and you're pulled back into the reality of your new life. The foreman is waving a clay tablet and scowling like someone just stepped on his barley loaf. You shuffle toward him, heart thudding. You're certain you didn't do anything wrong today at least, but that doesn't seem to matter in ancient Mesopotamia. Turns out a section of the canal wall has collapsed overnight. The mud brick gave out after a sudden burst of rain upstream. Now water is pooling where it shouldn't, flooding the path to a small orchard owned by a local priest. And when a priest complains, things move quickly. You're conscripted on the spot. No, you don't get a choice. Welcome to the ancient world where saying no to a government official can result in public humiliation, or worse, becoming someone's property. As you begin reinforcing the embankment, sweat trickles down your back in thick, muddy streams. Your tunic clings like wet paper. The sun has risen higher, and there's nowhere to hide from it. The air smells like hot clay and wet reeds, and the mosquitoes are practically singing hymns in your ear. Your arms are shaking. Your mind drifts. You wonder how the elites are spending their day. Probably reclining in a shaded courtyard sipping date wine, composing hymns to Enlil, or yelling at their servants about the wrong incense. Just as you're thinking of faking a snake bite to get out of this, a loud crack sounds across the field. Everyone freezes. A man has slipped into the canal, dragging his leg. He limps out, holding his ankle at a strange angle. Everyone stares. The foreman sighs. "Leave him," he mutters. And they do. The man sits in the mud, dazed and dusty as work continues around him. No one offers help. There's no workers' comp, no village doctor. There's an herbalist 3 streets over, but he charges in goats and you've only got debts. You finish your shift well past noon. By now your skin is 2 shades darker and your lips feel like they've been sandpapered. There's no lunch break in the formal sense, but you manage to find a shady spot behind a crumbling wall where someone's selling hot barley porridge ladled into a cracked clay bowl. You burn your tongue on the first bite as usual. It's impossible to tell whether it's ash grit or just the seasoning. While you eat, you overhear a pair of traders arguing nearby. One is insisting his sheep is worth 3 jars of date wine. The other offers 2.5 plus a very nervous-looking chicken. Barter is the law of the land. No coins yet, just goods haggling and hand signals. And if you think that makes things simpler, guess again. Your ears perk up when one trader mentions a flood that wiped out his brother's farm last week. It happened upriver. You remember passing that area when you first arrived here? His tone is casual, almost resigned. Natural disasters are so common here, people barely flinch anymore. Floods, droughts, dust storms, they're all part of the calendar. You wipe your mouth on your sleeve and stand. There's a temple nearby, one of the smaller ones dedicated to Nana the moon god. You figure you'll stop and say a quick prayer, try to improve your luck. The steps are worn smooth, the stone glistening with heat. You remove your sandals, not that they offered much protection to begin with, and bow slightly at the entrance. Inside it's dark and cool. The air smells of incense, old stone, and something metallic, blood perhaps. Someone's just made an offering. Probably a goat. You pass a mural showing the god descending from the sky surrounded by stars and celestial sheep. The priest nods at you. You place a dried fig on the altar and murmur a few words you hope are respectful. Historians still debate whether Mesopotamians believed their gods cared about individual prayers or just preferred regular bribes. Either way, you don't take chances. You step outside and immediately regret it. The heat hits you like a slap. You squint up at the Ziggurat, its whitewashed steps glowing under the afternoon sun. You're tempted to climb it just once to see what it looks like from up there. But the guards at the base don't look like they're in the mood for tourists. Instead, you head back toward the market. The sun is now an angry disk hovering over the city, and the streets are teeming. A man with a parrot on his shoulder shouts about healing salts. A woman sells fish so dry they might be fossils. Children dart between stalls, lifting dried dates when no one's looking. You nearly trip over a leashed goat being dragged by a boy who can't be older than 6. He's yelling in Akkadian, clearly losing the argument. You make way for a cart pulled by oxen, one of the few wheeled vehicles in the city. The driver glares at you like it's your fault he's stuck in goat traffic. You pass a stall selling charms clay amulets shaped like eyes, stars, and demons. The vendor claims they'll protect you from disease and curses. You hesitate. Not because you believe him, but because what if you hand him a pebble and a promise and he gives you a charm shaped like a lion with 7 legs? For strength, he says with a wink. You're not sure if you've been blessed or scammed, but you feel a tiny flicker of protection in your pocket. As the market noise swells, you notice something strange. A man is standing at the corner waving a tablet and reading from it aloud. He's reciting what sounds like a poem or an epic. The crowd is gathered. You stop and listen. It's the Epic of Gilgamesh, or at least a version of it. You catch lines about a wild man named Enkidu, sacred forests, and the flood that drowned the world. The storyteller's voice rises and falls like river waves. For a moment, you forget your blisters. You forget the heat. You just listen, and you realize despite the danger, the dust, and the despair, there's beauty here. In stories shared, in prayers whispered, in barley traded and debts shouted. This isn't just survival. It's the start of something, a civilization still figuring itself out. Then someone sneezes on you. You step back, quickly clutching your lion charm. ChatGPT Denoy Part 3. By now, the sun is tilting westward, casting long golden shadows across the clay streets, but your day is far from over. You think maybe you'll sneak back to your hut, curl up on that itchy mat, and call it a day. You'd be wrong. A city official with a shaved head and a stick longer than your arm is calling for all available hands. You're drafted again. This time for night preparation, cleaning out drainage ditches, patching wall cracks, and keeping the rats from outnumbering the humans. The same man who sneezed on you is 2 steps ahead, and you silently hope that lion charm starts kicking in soon. You trudge toward a communal storage house where bags of grain are piled like miniature ziggurats. The air inside is dry and thick with dust. A few men are rolling jars of sesame oil to the far corner, while others check for signs of mold. A woman is angrily waving a jar filled with weevils. You're handed a torch and told to sweep out the rear corridor. The smell back there is unholy. Something's died or decided to evolve, and it takes every ounce of restraint not to bolt. As you sweep the last pile of rotten straw into a corner, a man nearby strikes up conversation. He's from a neighboring city, one you can't pronounce, and he offers you a nugget of wisdom between coughs. The gods have favorite cities, you know. Ours isn't one of them. You're not sure if he's joking, but you laugh anyway. Lightly, carefully. Later, you're sent to help repair a collapsed wall segment near the riverside. The Euphrates gurgles quietly under the orange sky, thick and slow like honey laced with mud. You step carefully over reeds and broken brick. This is where the crocodiles used to roam before they moved farther downstream, mostly. A temple boy hums a tune as he hands you a basket of clay. His eyes are milky white. You don't ask questions. No one does. While mixing the mud, someone asks about the latest omen. You blink. Apparently last night, 3 owls perched on the Ziggurat's highest point. That's bad. Or good. Or extremely bad if one of them hooted 3 times. Historians still debate whether Mesopotamians saw omens as messages or warnings, or whether they were just really into dramatic birds. Either way, the general consensus here is don't trust the owls. The discussion turns to last month's eclipse. A man claims he saw the moon bleeding. Another swears the eclipse was followed by a spike in miscarriages and river boils. The priest said the gods were hungry, so a bull was sacrificed. It didn't seem to change much except the smell. You rinse your hands in a bucket that looks like it's been reused since before writing existed. Then someone suggests a break and the group disperses for evening meals. You're directed to a communal pit where flatbread is being baked on hot stones. You help yourself to a piece charred on one side, raw on the other, and try not to gag. It tastes like ash and disappointment, with just a hint of goat. Nearby, a group of men sit cross-legged whispering about city politics. Apparently, the governor is angry with the temple administrators. Something about miscounted offerings, missing cattle, and an affair with someone's second wife. The scandal is so juicy it might be preserved in clay forever. You sneak another piece of bread and slink away toward your hut. You've done your time today. Your legs feel like bricks, and your spine makes noises when you bend. Your neighbors are lighting oil lamps, their flames flickering like tiny stars trapped in clay. The scent of burning fish oil hangs low in the air. At your doorway, you notice something new, a small mark etched into the wall. It wasn't there this morning. You lean in. It's the symbol for inspected. Someone's checked your dwelling, for taxes, for hygiene, for contraband. You don't know, but your stomach clenches anyway. You enter and collapse onto your mat. The air inside is thick and still. Outside, a dog barks, then another, then silence. You hear the soft trickle of the river in the distance, and a man shouting something about stolen figs. A baby cries. Someone is arguing in a language that sounds like coughing and laughter. You close your eyes. But before sleep can take you, there's a knock at the door. You groan. You consider pretending to be dead. But Mesopotamians weren't that lucky. You open it to find a woman tall with a basket balanced on her head and a scroll in her hand. "You've been summoned," she says flatly. "Temple of Ishtar. Now." Oh no. You follow her through torch-lit alleys and past sleeping goats. The Temple of Ishtar is a massive structure, its gate flanked by stone lions, its walls etched with ancient myths and celestial beasts. You hesitate at the threshold. She pushes you gently. Inside, the air is thick with incense. Musicians pluck lyres. Women in flowing robes chant in a tongue older than your own confusion. You're led past a statue of Ishtar, goddess of love and war, depending on her mood. You try not to make eye contact with a mural of 2 scorpions mating under a blood-red moon. You're taken to a small room where a priestess sits on a low stool painting a clay tablet. She glances at you, then back at her work. "You're the one with the unpaid barley debt," she says, as if confirming a rumor. You nod slowly. She taps her stylus against her teeth. "You'll work the temple stables tomorrow. Clean the dung, water the donkeys. 1 week and we'll call it even." You exhale. It could have been worse. You could have been sacrificed, or married off to a merchant in Elam. You bow awkwardly and back out. On the way home, the stars have risen. Orion shimmers above, though here he probably goes by another name. The air is cooler now. You pass a drunk man curled beneath a fig tree, whispering a lullaby to the moon. Back at your hut, you lie on your mat once more. Your lion charm lies beside you. You think about tomorrow's stables, donkeys, dung, and smile faintly. At least it's not the canal again. Part 4. You wake up to the sound of hooves and something much worse shouting. Not the kind of shouting that leads to casual gossip or exaggerated market tales, but the kind that precedes punishment pain or public display. You lie still for a moment, eyes shut, trying to pretend you're just a rock near the river. But it doesn't work. You hear your name again, or at least the version people here use when they want something from you. And you remember the stables, the priestess, the debt, the donkeys. You sit up, bones creaking, and notice something moving in the thatched roof above you. You try not to look too closely. It might be a lizard, or a spider the size of your thumb. Either way, it's not your business. Your tunic from yesterday is still damp. You put it on anyway. The streets are already alive with motion. Men carry baskets on their heads. Women stir pots in the dust. A child squats near a puddle, poking it with a stick while his mother yells at him not to anger the water spirits. You reach the temple gates, and a sleepy guard waves you through. The stables are behind the main shrine, simple enclosures of wood and mud brick. The smell hits you instantly, a wave of hot, earthy stink, sharp and lingering. You gag quietly, then get to work. Watering, shoveling, scraping. One of the donkeys eyes you with deep suspicion, then turns and kicks the wall behind you. You spend the next 2 hours trying to clean a stone trough while dodging hostile hooves and swatting flies the size of coins. You've never felt closer to enlightenment or madness. During a break, a stable boy offers you a handful of dried lentils. They're hard as gravel, but better than nothing. He tells you a story while you chew about how a talking serpent once stole his uncle's cow. He swears it's true. You nod, mouth full of ancient protein, and pretend you're impressed. Later, you're sent to fetch water from the river. You're handed a clay jug so heavy it feels like someone filled it with regret. The path to the river winds past the city's outer edge, where life feels a bit thinner. The huts are smaller, the people leaner. A man with a milky eye sits on a stool, whispering names into the air. You give him a wide berth. The riverbank is muddy and buzzing with activity. Women rinse linens, traders scrub carts, and a few children chase frogs into the shallows. You dip the jug carefully, trying not to fall in. That would be a very quick way to end your career and your life. As you turn to leave, you notice a woman standing knee-deep in the water, holding a small clay figure and chanting softly. She's weeping. You can't understand the words, but the tone is unmistakable. A plea, maybe a farewell. You've heard stories. Some people believe the river takes messages to the underworld. Or maybe it just takes everything else. Hope homes husbands. Back at the stables, you deliver the water and spend the rest of the afternoon mixing mud for patching a cracked wall. Your hands are raw. Your eyes sting from the sun and dust. One of the donkeys brays so loudly it scares a scribe walking past. He curses in Sumerian and drops his tablet. You almost laugh. Almost. The scribe glares at you. These beasts were sacred once, he mutters. Now look at them. And us. Then he trudges off toward the Ziggurat, mumbling about how writing should be reserved for kings, not for tracking goat dung. You return to the work. The mud is thick and cool between your fingers. For a moment, you wonder if this counts as art. Probably not. But it sticks. In the late afternoon, you're told you've earned a short break. You sit in the shade, sipping from a cracked clay cup filled with something that tastes like watered-down vinegar and stale dates. You don't ask questions. A group nearby is gathered around a man with a scar down his cheek. He's telling a story, loud, animated, half-truth and half-dream. It's about a fisherman who sailed the river to the edge of the world and found a land where no one aged, and the gods walked freely. Historians still debate, he says with a grin, whether that fisherman ever existed. But I tell you, he was my great-grandfather's cousin. Everyone laughs. You do too. Lightly. Carefully. As evening descends, your body feels like it's been flattened by a runaway chariot. You're released from stable duty and told your debt is nearly settled. Maybe one more day, the priestess says, not looking up from her tablet. You want to cheer, but instead you bow. On your way back, you pass the central square where a small crowd is forming. A public punishment is about to begin. You edge closer, curiosity battling exhaustion. A man stands tied to a wooden post surrounded by clay tablets. The crowd murmurs. His crime, borrowing a neighbor's ox without permission. It's not just the act, it's the precedent. If ox borrowing goes unchecked, what next? Unlicensed barley loans, unauthorized fish trading. A scribe steps forward and reads from a tablet. By order of the council, one arm shall be broken. The left, unless he's a scribe. Then the right. There's a murmur. The man is not a scribe. You turn away before it happens. Back in your hut, the sky is streaked with stars. The air carries a cooler breeze, smelling faintly of ash and jasmine. You stretch out on your mat bones, humming mind swimming in barley donkeys and moonlit prayers. You clutch the lion charm to your chest and close your eyes. Tomorrow will come quickly, and it promises to be just as unforgiving. Part 5. The dreams are strange. You're walking along the banks of the Euphrates, but the river runs backward uphill straight into the sky. A clay tablet floats by, etched with symbols you recognize and don't. A voice whispers your name in Akkadian over and over until it becomes the wind. Then you wake up, covered in sweat, mosquito bites, and dread. Another day in Mesopotamia has begun. You sit up slowly, groaning. Your back is one solid knot. The sun hasn't even risen, but the city already stirs. Somewhere nearby, someone is grinding barley with a heavy stone. The rhythmic scrape is almost meditative until your stomach growls and shatters the illusion. You step outside and catch the faint smell of roasted fish. You follow it to a neighbor's hut, where a woman is frying river catch on a flat stone. She sees you, sighs, and tosses you a scrap. It's chewy, slightly burnt, and definitely has bones. You thank her anyway. That's considered a generous breakfast. But your reprieve doesn't last. The same woman hands you a rolled-up palm strip, a message, a summons. You unroll it and read the rough symbols scratched into its surface. It's from the city council. You've been selected, lucky you, for public maintenance duty. That means sanitation. That means sewage. You look up at the sky, wondering briefly if the gods are trying to tell you something. The sky does not answer. You report to a narrow alley near the edge of the administrative district where clay gutters run like open veins through the city. You're handed a wide wooden paddle and told to keep it moving. The waste flows slow, thick, unpredictable. The stench rises in waves. It gets into your clothes, your skin, your soul. This job exists solely because it has to. No one talks. No one jokes. You just paddle the current of human history and try not to fall in. Occasionally, you catch glimpses of upper-class life. Above, on a raised platform, two men in crisp robes sip beer from ornate straws and debate the price of copper. One of them fans himself with a palm leaf. The other scratches a clay tablet, as if the world depends on it. You can hear every word. Their sandals look newer than your entire hut. Down here, your feet are submerged in a mixture of water, soil, and yesterday's regrets. Around midday, you're pulled from the trench by a boy with a shaved head and a nervous smile. He hands you a sealed tablet. "Scribe wants you," he says, as if that explains anything. You dry your hands on your tunic, what's left of it, and follow him through a maze of alleyways and sun-baked corridors until you reach a small building nestled beside a ziggurat. The scribe's quarters. You step inside and are nearly blinded by reflected light. Dozens of clay tablets sit drying on racks. The room smells like hot mud and ink. The scribe himself is perched on a low stool, stylus in hand, muttering under his breath. "You've worked irrigation," he says without looking up. You've worked the stables. You can read symbols, you hesitate. I can guess shapes, you admit. He grunts and tosses a tablet toward you. Copy this. You kneel beside a block of wet clay and stare at the original. The symbols are tiny, precise, almost smug. You pick up the stylus and press too hard at first, then find a rhythm. After 10 minutes, your back screams, your fingers cramp, and you've only copied 2 lines. The scribe peers over your shoulder. Ugly, he says, but legible. You feel weirdly proud. He sets another tablet in front of you. This one tells the story of a merchant who sued his brother over a shipment of bad beer. You're halfway through copying it when the scribe interrupts. Tell me something. What's the worst thing you've seen here, you think? The punishment post. The sewage canal. The donkey that kicked a priestess in the shins. The taxes, you reply. He chuckles, spoken like a local. He offers you a small flask. You sniff it, sour, yeasty, but not deadly. You sip. Your tongue curls. It's beer, technically. Mesopotamian beer is thick, cloudy, and comes with a crunchy surprise grains floating freely. But it gets the job done. You return to your copying slower now, more careful. There's something calming about shaping words that will outlast your body. These tablets will dry harden and survive floods, wars, even time itself. Meanwhile, your liver probably won't make it to the next solstice. Eventually, the scribe waves you off. You walk back through the city, head buzzing from beer and heat. Children run past playing a game with carved sticks and goat knuckles. A beggar leans against a wall singing something you don't understand. A priest stands on a crate shouting about the goddess Inanna's wrath and how the people have grown soft. He throws a date pit into the crowd. A woman catches it and bows. You're too tired to interpret. As evening settles, smoke coils upward from cooking fires. The scent of onions, lentils, and charcoal fills the air. You're offered a bowl of stew by a man who claims to be your cousin. You nod like you recognize him. The stew is spicy, warm, and actually edible. You almost cry. After dinner, a storm of laughter breaks out across the courtyard. A storyteller has begun reciting a myth, one you've heard only in fragments. It's about a king who tried to become immortal by eating stars. The ending changes depending on the teller. Tonight he gets turned into a frog. Historians still debate. The storyteller says, raising a hand, whether this tale is truth metaphor or just a warning against celestial snacking. Everyone laughs. You do too. Lightly, carefully. As the stars blink on overhead, you stretch out beside your hut, too tired to climb inside, too full to care. The lion charm is warm against your chest. You whisper thanks to any god who will listen, not for survival, but for this moment. Even in Mesopotamia, there are slivers of peace. Part 6. The next morning greets you not with sunlight, but with drums. A slow, rhythmic pounding echoes through the city streets, bouncing off mud brick walls and rippling across the rooftops. You jolt upright, confused, heart racing. It's not a festival. You'd remember if it were. No, this is something else. Something ceremonial and serious. You throw on your tunic still damp from last night's dew and follow the sound. Crowds are gathering near the temple courtyard, murmuring. You push through throngs of sweating bodies and wide-eyed children until you see it. A body wrapped in fine cloth, decorated with beads and rings, is being carried on a platform by 6 young men. The corpse's face is covered by a golden mask. You recognize the symbol etched into the brow, the emblem of a judge. Someone important has died, and in Mesopotamia, death was never just a family matter. It was a citywide spectacle. You stand at the edge of the procession, watching in silence. Mourners wail with genuine grief, or perhaps the fear of being noticed, not grieving. Priests wave incense over the path. At the rear of the crowd, a man sells flatbread shaped like tiny coffins. Eat to remember, he shouts. Eat so the gods don't forget you. You buy one. The procession winds through the main boulevard toward the burial grounds just outside the city's fortified wall, near a grove of date palms and ancient stones. You follow quietly, not because you were invited, but because death here is a lesson, one you're expected to witness. The ceremony begins. Offerings are made. Spices and oils are poured over the wrapped body. The judge is placed in a clay coffin alongside small tokens, a stylus, a tablet, a sealed jar of something too valuable to drink. One priest sings while another weeps. A third buries a scroll beneath the feet of the coffin, so the dead may continue learning. Someone whispers beside you. You nod, though no one asked. Afterward, you drift away from the mourners and wander the edge of the field. Here, old graves are marked with stacked stones or fading symbols carved into broken bricks. One reads simply, "A maker of fishnets." Another says, "He feared the eclipse more than he should have." You sit beneath a tree and let your thoughts untangle. Mortality in Mesopotamia is more than final. It's a reckoning. The gods are watching always, and not just for what you did, but what you failed to do. You head back to the city as the sun climbs higher, its heat pushing down on your shoulders like judgment. On the way, you pass a boy drawing in the dirt with a stick. He's sketching what looks like a star, a fish, and a foot. You ask what it means. He shrugs. "I dreamt it." You walk on. By midday, you're back at the communal courtyard just in time for another assignment. This time it's construction duty. A warehouse wall collapsed during last night's storm. No warning, just crack then rubble. No one was inside, thankfully. But now it has to be rebuilt, and fast. You're handed a bucket of fresh mud and a pair of flat wooden paddles. A man beside you hums a tune you don't recognize, slapping mud into place with an almost poetic rhythm. "This is the work of the living," he says between breaths, because the dead are always watching. He might be a poet, or maybe just tired. The work is grueling but not lonely. Builders here develop a rhythm. Someone tells a joke about a man who tried to outsmart a tax collector by pretending to be a tree. You don't get it, but you laugh anyway. Lightly, carefully. As the sun sets, you're given a chance to wash off in a shallow pool fed by the river. The water is warm, murky, and filled with reeds, but it's the cleanest you've been in days. You scrub your arms, legs, neck, and wonder if your skin has always felt this coarse, or if Mesopotamia is slowly sanding you into one of its bricks. Later, you find yourself wandering past the edge of town, where wild dogs prowl and ghosts are rumored to walk. You pause at a ruined archway, half sunk in sand. An old woman sits there chewing something bitter-looking. She gestures to the city and asks, "You think they'll remember your name?" You shrug. Doubt it. She grins toothless. "Then make them remember your smell." That lasts longer. It's both disturbing and oddly comforting. On your way back, you hear the sounds of music rising again. Not drums this time, but lyres and pipes. A celebration is happening in the market square. You drift toward it. Lamps flicker in clay sconces. Dancers in sheer linen swirl to the beat of hand claps. Someone juggles flaming sticks while a man recites verses from an old hymn praising Inanna, goddess of love, war, and maybe bad decisions. You're pulled into a circle by a laughing girl with silver bangles. You stumble through the steps, faking confidence, pretending you know what to do. And for a few moments, you forget about taxes, sewage, donkeys, and clay. You just dance. As the celebration winds down, you return to your hut. The air is cooler now. The stars blink with familiar indifference. You lie down staring at the reeds above you, wondering what tomorrow will demand. Then you remember your week of service at the temple is done. But Mesopotamia doesn't run out of ways to test you. And you're still here. Barely. Part 7. You wake up not to drums, not to shouting, not even to the squeal of a donkey being stubborn, but to silence. A rare gift in Mesopotamia. For a moment you think something's wrong. Maybe the city was attacked overnight. Maybe the river dried up. Maybe the gods finally hit reset. But then you hear the gentle trickle of water, the distant thump of a pot being set down, and the slow crunch of sandals on sand. Just morning. You stretch on your mat, noticing that your muscles still ache in places you didn't know could hurt. But there's a whisper of something else, satisfaction maybe. You made it through another day. In ancient Mesopotamia, that's no small feat. You stand, rinse your face with leftover water, and step outside. The sky is still pale, just beginning to warm. The scent of cooking barley drifts through the alleyways. A woman nearby pours something into a cracked bowl and hums a lullaby meant to chase off spirits. Today, you've earned a break or so, you thought. As you pass a small plaza, a man in official robes waves you over. "We need extra hands," he says flatly, handing you a small wooden token. "Temple livestock inventory, of course." You follow him through the weaving streets until you reach the outer compound of the temple district, where sheep-goats and a couple very confused-looking oxen have been gathered in a dusty pen. Several scribes sit nearby with their tablets and styluses, marking down head counts, hoof inspections, and general animal complaints. You're handed a reed switch and told to keep the peace. What that means in practice is chasing goats that absolutely do not want to be counted. You learn quickly that temple animals are treated better than most people. They're brushed fed first and even have designated names. One goat is called Servant of Enlil. Another is Milk Vessel of the Stars. You're tempted to adopt the latter as your Mesopotamian nickname. An hour in a dispute breaks out. A farmer accuses another man of switching tags on 2 sheep. "That's not your ram," he growls. "Mine has the spiral horns." The other man scoffs. "Your ram's in the stew pot already. This one was born under Ishtar's moon." A scribe steps in and starts asking questions. You're pulled in as a witness despite not understanding how any of this started. You try to explain you just chased the animals, not identify them. But the scribe insists you describe which goat ran where. You point vaguely toward the fence. Both men yell. One sheep bleats in what sounds like accusation. Eventually the matter is settled by casting lots. Small bones are thrown, numbers counted, and a god invoked. The outcome is declared divine, and everyone pretends to be satisfied. You return to your corner of the pen where a cow has stepped in something sacred and now refuses to move. Sometime after midday, you're given a break. You wander toward the river where the banks are quiet again. You sit on a flat stone and watch dragonflies skim the surface. The water glitters in the sunlight. And then, without warning, you sneeze. Once, twice, 3 times. People nearby pause. A woman whispers something and crosses to the far side. A boy holding a jar of dates drops it and runs. Great, now you're a walking omen. You stand quickly and head back toward the city center, wiping your nose on your sleeve. The last thing you need is to be accused of harboring wind sickness or demon breath. You've seen how they deal with that. Salt baths, public quarantine, prayer circles where people chant until their tongues go dry. Back in the courtyard, someone's setting up a game. 2 boys etch lines into the dust and drop knuckle bones into a shallow pit. One of them boasts he learned the rules from a priest. The other says his father cheats by using blessed dice. They argue over the rules. You smile faintly watching them throw bones like ancient Vegas gamblers. Then someone taps your shoulder. It's a woman wearing the mark of a midwife, a strand of beads and a pouch of herbs. "You're the one who worked the stables last week," she asks. You nod. "One of the temple donkeys gave birth. Something's wrong with the foal." She glances at your feet. "You're coming." Moments later, you're back at the stables, the scent of hay and damp straw instantly familiar. The foal lies on its side, breathing shallow. Its legs are tangled beneath it, eyes half shut. The mother nudges it anxiously. You've never delivered anything in your life. But the midwife is already mixing herbs. Hold the head gently. Don't let it bite its tongue. You do as you're told, hands shaking. The midwife works fast, applying paste to the foal's belly, massaging its joints, muttering soft prayers under her breath. It's not a religious act, it's muscle memory, a ritual of hope. Eventually the foal stirs, coughs, tries to rise. It wobbles to its feet, trembling. And just like that, it's alive. You step back stunned. The midwife nods and leaves without a word. You lean against the wall, breath caught somewhere between awe and exhaustion. And in that moment, you realize something strange. You care about the donkey, about this place, about people whose names you still can't pronounce. You're not just surviving anymore, you're living. You walk home under a sky that's begun to darken with clouds. A storm is coming. You can feel it in the wind. The dust rises and swirls. Doors are shut, lamps lit. You crawl onto your mat, pull a cloth over your eyes and smile. Because today, something lived, and so did you. Part 8. The storm comes in the middle of the night. You don't see it at first, you hear it. A low rumble like a distant drum roll from the gods. Then a sudden gust of wind slaps the side of your hut, flinging dust through the cracks. You sit up in the dark, blinking, as the sound of rattling shutters and frightened animals fills the air. Then comes the rain. Not a drizzle, not a polite sprinkle. This is full-throated, earth-pounding, sky-splitting Mesopotamian rain. The kind that turns paths into rivers and rooftops into bathtubs. You rush to cover your small storage jar, inside it your last bit of barley and what might be half a dried fig. The roof leaks. Of course it does. You press your mat against the gap, which helps for about 6 seconds. Outside, voices shout in the dark. You peek through a slit in the reed curtain. Several neighbors are trying to fasten a tarp over their door. A goat runs past, bleeding in outrage. A man chases it barefoot, screaming what is either a curse or a prayer, possibly both. When dawn finally creeps over the horizon, the storm begins to sputter out, leaving behind a glistening city of mud and debris. The alleys are flooded, the courtyards choked with soggy straw, and your sandals squish with every step. You squint up at the sky as if daring it to try again. It doesn't, for now. You head toward the center of town where the damage is being assessed. A man with a swollen lip is yelling about his roof collapsing. A woman claims lightning struck her neighbor's shrine to Ninhursag. She always watered it wrong, she mutters darkly. You're herded with a group of other able-bodied folk volunteers, though your opinion was not requested and sent to the granaries. Rain and grain do not mix well. The temple scribes are frantic. One holds up a soggy tablet and wails. This was a list of sacred offerings. Another slaps his forehead with both hands like he's trying to erase a bad omen. You're given a scoop and a reed basket. The task: salvage what can be saved and spread the rest to dry. You work under a canvas canopy where every gust of wind threatens to dump half your progress back onto the wet earth. A young girl offers you a lump of dried salt for your trouble. You nibble it like it's candy. Later, as the sky brightens, a councilman arrives to inspect the damage. He's tall, clean, and profoundly disinterested in your opinion. Next flood, build higher, he mutters, stepping over a puddle with the grace of someone who hasn't done hard labor in his life. The scribes nod fervently. You're dismissed by midday, a temporary reprieve. You trudge home soaked and sore. On the way, you pass a shrine to Enki, god of water and wisdom. Someone's left an offering: 3 fish, some flowers, and a lump of clay shaped like a tear. You pause. You don't believe Enki caused the storm, but you're not sure he didn't either. You leave your salt candy on the altar, just in case. At home, you wring out your tunic and collapse onto your mat, but before you can drift off, there's a knock at your door. It's the storyteller, the same man who told the tale of the Frog King and the Star Eater. He smiles like you've known each other for years. Come, he says, today we recount the war of Umma and Lagash. You follow. At the market square, a small crowd gathers. Children, elders, even a few priests pretending not to be entertained. The storyteller stands atop an overturned basket, arms wide. He begins. It was in the year of the broken moon, when Lagash's water rights were stolen by greedy Umma. He weaves a tale of irrigation disputes, divine messages in dreams, and a cursed commander whose mustache caught fire mid-battle. The audience laughs, gasps, hisses, and shouts advice to long-dead kings. You find yourself drawn in, forgetting your damp clothes and aching knees. Historians still debate, the man says, eyes twinkling, whether the war was truly about water or whether it was just another excuse for men to swing swords and shout their gods' names louder than the other side. You nod. That checks out. After the story, someone plays a simple tune on a lyre. Children dance barefoot in the mud. A man balances a clay jar on his head while reciting multiplication tables in Sumerian. It's chaos. It's joy. It's home whether you asked for it or not. You spend the rest of the afternoon patching your hut. A neighbor lends you a bundle of reeds, mumbling "repay me in fish or friendship." You smile. You'll take the second option. As the sun sets, the sky glows gold and purple over the river. You sit outside, damp, but drying, sore, but smiling. You've made it through a storm, a council inspection, and an epic poem, all in one day. Back inside, you light a small oil lamp and lie back watching the shadows dance across the ceiling. Your lion charm is tucked beneath your hand, still dry somehow. You whisper something, thanks maybe, or defiance. Because in a city of floods and fire gods and gossip plague and poetry, you're still here. Part 9. The next morning, the air feels thick, not just from humidity, but from something unspoken coiling in the streets like smoke. Something's wrong. People walk faster. Eyes dart sideways. The usual morning sounds, bickering. Neighbors, merchants arguing over dates, someone chasing a runaway chicken are hushed. Even the donkeys seem anxious. You watch one refuse to move, legs locked, eyes wide. You know the feeling. You ask a boy selling fish bones what's going on. He shrugs, then whispers, "The gods are angry." Classic. You press for details. He hesitates, then points toward the temple district. You'll see, so you go. At the edge of the plaza, you spotted a massive clay tablet propped against a column, its surface carved with freshly written cuneiform. A crowd gathers, whispering, heads bowed. You push forward and catch a glimpse of the message. It's a royal decree, something about a failed harvest, a stolen idol, and an official accusation that someone, possibly many someones, have fallen out of favor with the gods. The punishment, a city-wide ritual. Everyone must offer something: food, prayer, a lock of hair, a promise. Refusal is not an option. You glance around. Already people are tying bread to the temple doors, pouring oil into ceremonial basins, whispering names into the wind. One man drops to his knees and begins reciting a hymn so quickly it sounds like he's trying to outtalk a curse. You step back. You don't have much. Your barley stash is nearly gone. Your tunic is already mended more times than it should be. But refusing would be unwise. You head home and rummage through your few possessions. A chipped bowl, a flat stone you liked the look of, a broken reed flute. Then your fingers brush the lion charm. You pause. It's silly. Just a lump of clay, probably mass-produced. But you've kept it close, slept with it, squeezed it in moments of panic. You almost died in a canal while holding it. You also survived a temple full, birthing with it in your hand. It's nothing, but it's also everything. Still, it might be enough. You carry it to the shrine of Enlil. Not the grand temple, but a smaller structure near the city's edge. It's quieter here. Fewer eyes, fewer judgments. You kneel. Place the charm on the stone altar and whisper something vague, an apology maybe, or a bribe. Then you stand and walk away without looking back. That afternoon, the city holds a public cleansing. Everyone must walk past the Ziggurat in single file, heads bowed, touching a reed bundle dipped in perfumed water. To wash away the unseen, says a priest in a voice that manages to sound both bored and ominous. You do as instructed. Behind you, a woman mutters the names of her ancestors. In front, a man in elaborate robes recites multiplication tables between each step. You're not sure if it's part of the ritual or if he's just nervous. Once the procession ends, you're told to return to your district. A watch period begins, 24 hours of quiet observation. No music, no drunken dancing, no loud pottery. You sit in your hut staring at the ceiling. Even the bugs are quieter today. By nightfall, your stomach growls, but you dare not cook. Instead, you chew on a handful of dried chickpeas and try not to crack a tooth. Outside, the city glows with the soft orange flicker of dozens of small oil lamps set in windows on steps on the backs of clay statues, flickering fire against thick darkness. You lie back and wonder how many rituals it takes before the gods are satisfied. You don't remember falling asleep. You wake up to the smell of burning fig leaves, not from fire, from incense. The watch period is over. Outside drums echo again, but slowly, gently this time. A safe rhythm, one that says the gods have heard, the danger has passed, the curse, if there was one, is appeased. You walk to the plaza where people begin gathering again. Merchants are cautiously unrolling their mats. Children shout for no reason. A woman balances a stack of reeds on her head and dances in a circle just because she can. The storyteller is back. He stands on his usual crate, grinning like a cat in a sunbeam. "What do we do when the gods go silent?" he asks the crowd. Someone shouts, "We shout louder." Another laughs. "We blame Amma." Everyone roars. He begins a new tale, one about a man who tried to steal sleep from the gods and ended up sleeping for 100 years. Historians still debate, he says, whether he ever woke up. You find yourself laughing. Not carefully, not quietly, just laughing. You help an old man rebuild a market stall. He gives you a slice of dried plum and says you've got storm hands. You're not sure what it means, but it sounds like a compliment. Later, you watch a group of children roll clay balls down a ramp, shouting bets on which one will win. The ramp collapses, they all lose, and they cheer anyway. You think about the lion charm. You wonder if it's still on the altar. You wonder if it matters. You sit in the sunlight. The city breathes again, and so do you. Part 10. The sun rises with that familiar golden sharpness cutting through the haze of sleep like a blade through barley stalks. You wake with your mouth dry and your legs curled awkwardly under your mat, one arm numb from sleeping on it. You stretch slowly, half expecting another taskmaster to appear at the door and drag you to the next canal ditch or dung pile. But no one comes. Today there's no summons, no goat inspection, no scribe waving a stylus like it's a sword, just silence, and the chance rare and fleeting for choice. You choose the river. You make your way toward it, slipping between buildings still damp from last week's storm. The streets have begun to settle back into their rhythm. A potter sings while shaping a water jug. Two old men argue over the correct number of gods in the local pantheon, 43 or 42 and a half. A child runs by, naked, laughing, followed by a woman wielding a rag like a whip. You reach the riverbank and settle onto a flat rock warmed by the morning sun. The water glistens and flows past like it has forever, carrying with it silt secrets and the occasional fish carcass. Across the current, a fisherman balances in a narrow canoe net in hand, face focused. He sees you. Nods once, says nothing. It's peaceful, which of course means it can't last. A commotion breaks out upriver, shouting, splashing. You rise and hurry toward it, sandals slipping in the mud. When you arrive, a crowd is already gathering at the edge of a dock where two men stand, each gripping a piece of torn net. They're brothers, apparently, and the net belonged to their father, may the gods bless his silt-covered soul. One accuses the other of hiding the good portions for himself. The other claims he did all the repairs last year and deserves first catch rights. The crowd watches like it's a public play. Someone eats lentils. Someone else places bets. Eventually, a city guard arrives looking deeply annoyed. He listens for all of 12 seconds, then declares, "The net belongs to the temple now. Both of you owe fish." Justice in Mesopotamia, quick, cruel, and never quite satisfying. You shake your head and drift away back toward the marketplace. Today, the stalls are buzzing. Fresh melons, clay beads, honey cakes that smell better than they taste. You trade half a reed mat for a cup of thick beer and a small twist of dried meat. As you eat, a woman approaches. She's older, her face a tapestry of sun and time, her voice hoarse from years of bargaining. "You work the scribe's house, yes?" she asks. You nod. She pulls out a clay tablet from a cloth wrap, small, flat, and crumbling at the edges. "My son died last spring. I want his name remembered." You stare at the tablet. The symbols are old, faded, some half erased by time or carelessness. You can't promise to fix it, but you can copy it. That much at least. You bring her to the scribe's corner, an open porch shaded by date palms, its benches slick with clay dust. The lead scribe isn't around, so you sit cross-legged, press a fresh tablet into shape, and begin etching. It takes you nearly an hour. Her son's name was Idin Sin. He liked figs and frogs. He once outran a priest's ox. He was 15. You inscribe it all, even the silly parts. Especially the silly parts. The woman watches, hands trembling, lips pressed tight. When it's done, she takes the tablet, holds it to her forehead, then walks away. You sit there a while longer, stylus still in hand, and wonder if someone will ever write your name in clay. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe you'll just be the one with storm hands, or that poor fool who worked in the temple stables. Then again, that's not nothing. In the afternoon, you wander through the southern quarter. It's older here. The buildings lean inward. The shadows are thicker. You pass a crumbling statue of Ishtar, its face worn down by centuries of sand. Someone's hung fresh flowers from her arms. They sway in the heat like they're dancing. At a nearby corner, a man plays a flute made from river reed. The tune is slow, meandering, not quite happy or sad. A few people pause to listen. You do too. A girl approaches with a clay pot balanced on her head and asks if you want to hear your future. You raise an eyebrow. She's no more than 10 years old. She nods seriously. "I read dreams." You ask what yours says. She stares at you for a long moment, then says, "You're from somewhere else. You don't belong here." But you do. And then she runs off before you can ask anything more. You sit on a nearby step thinking about that. As dusk falls, the sky bleeds gold, then orange, then a violet that melts into night. Oil lamps flicker to life across the plaza. The storyteller appears once more, carrying a new tablet still wet with fresh clay. Tonight, he announces, we hear of the city beneath the river. Gasps, someone claps, a child squeals. You listen, eyes half closed, body aching in all the old familiar places. He speaks of a kingdom that was swallowed whole for forgetting its gods. Its people turned to fish, its scribes still writing underwater, its donkeys transformed into dolphins. Historians still debate, he says, whether this was myth or a warning. The audience laughs. You laugh. Lightly, carefully, but when you go to sleep that night, the river is louder than usual, and your dreams are full of clay tablets floating just beneath the surface. Part 11. By now, you've stopped counting the days. That might sound poetic, but it's mostly because the Mesopotamian calendar is a complete mess. Lunar months, leap months, sudden festivals that appear with little warning. One day you're harvesting barley, the next you're told to fast in honor of a star that hasn't been visible for 3 years. So you just wake, breathe, and go. Today the city feels tense again, not in a panicked way like before the storm, but in that awkward, tiptoeing around something kind of way. You can smell it. No one's laughing too loudly. Merchants speak softer. Even the donkeys seem unusually well behaved. The reason the king is in town. You overhear it in the morning buzz he's passing through, inspecting irrigation works, visiting temples, checking on tribute quotas. No one knows which road he'll take or which ziggurat he'll climb, but everyone's preparing just in case. You're told to help clean the main boulevard, not because you're special, because you're not, but because your back still works and you look like someone who doesn't complain loudly. You spend the morning scraping dried mud off flagstones, trying to avoid the broken jars, discarded melon rinds, and one stubborn pigeon that refuses to move. You work beside a man who hums hymns in the key of exhaustion. He says he once saw the king's chariot up close. It had wheels, he whispers, as if describing a divine miracle. By midday, a procession can be heard in the distance, drums, flutes, and the clattering of horse hooves. You straighten suddenly, self-conscious of your sweat-soaked tunic and mud-crusted hands. The king's party never passes your street. Turns out they took the South Road instead, where the governor's cousin lives, where the shrines are polished and the streets were swept at dawn. Figures. You slump down on a bench near a well and watch as people slowly return to normal volume. A boy runs by shouting that he saw the king's nose. A woman swears her cousin touched his cloak. A baker claims the king smiled in his general direction. History is being rewritten in real time. Later you head toward the docks, drawn by the smell of fresh fish and river wind. The water is high today, lapping at the banks like it's searching for something. You find a fisherman, one of the older ones, his beard streaked with clay and time, muttering as he pulls in a net. You sit beside him without asking. He points to a spot on the river. That's where the gods dropped a star, he says. Long ago. It sank. Still glows beneath the water on certain nights. You nod. He hands you a fish. You don't know if it's a gift or a job. You gut it anyway. The act is strangely meditative. There's something satisfying about scraping away the scales, pulling the insides free, rinsing the bones. Primitive, yes, but simple. Certain. As you work, the fisherman tells stories, not myths, just memories, of when the river ran red with flowers after a wedding, of the time an owl built a nest in the temple rafters and everyone panicked for a week, of how his father swore he saw the god Ea washing his feet by the bank one morning. You listen, because sometimes listening is the only ritual that matters. As evening falls, you carry the fish home. You roast it over a low flame, adding a pinch of salt borrowed from a neighbor who says you still owe him a story in return. You promise one. You don't know which yet. After dinner, you wander through the side streets past shadowed doorways and shuttered stalls. You reach the old temple district, where few go at night. There, sitting beneath a crumbling statue of Nana, you find the girl from days ago, the one who read your future. She's drawing again, this time with a piece of chalk on a broken tablet. Stars, spirals, a lion, a fish with wings. You sit beside her quietly. She looks up and says, "You stayed." You blink. "I thought maybe you'd vanish like the others," she continues. "People come, people go. But you keep waking up. You don't know what to say. So you nod, and she smiles. On your way back, the storyteller is finishing a tale. Something about a man who challenged a thunder god to a game of dice and lost, or won. It's hard to tell. People clap. Someone throws a date. The stars are bright tonight. You lie down, arms folded behind your head, staring up at constellations with names you'll never know. You trace patterns between them. Shapes, symbols, maybe omens, maybe just stars. You fall asleep without realizing it, and in your dream, you're floating down the river again. But this time you're not afraid. You're not lost. You're just carried. Part 12. You wake with your cheek pressed against cool stone, and the rising sun painting the wall of your hut in gold. For once, there's no immediate panic, no screaming neighbor, no runaway livestock, no priest standing over you with a list of your sins and a shovel. Just morning, and for the first time since arriving in this unforgiving stretch of history, you feel like you belong. Not comfortably, not easily, but undeniably. You step outside and breathe in the scent of damp earth and cooking grain. A bird whistles in the reeds. Someone down the street is arguing about figs again. Everything is strangely ordinary, which of course means change is coming. By mid-morning, word has spread there's been an accident at the kiln. You rush with the others to the artisan quarter, where a half-finished statue of a goddess has collapsed inward like a deflated loaf of bread. A crowd gathers whispering as workers scrape at the cracked clay with slivers of bronze. The head priest is there, his face, unreadable hands behind his back. Someone mutters, "Bad omen." Another whispers, "Divine displeasure." A third claims he saw a raven circling the kiln just before it happened, and that's all the proof anyone needs. The priest orders a cleansing. Within the hour, everyone is working. Ash is swept, water is poured in spirals. Offerings of flour and oil are placed in neat rows beside the surviving statues. You're handed a bundle of reeds and told to help repaint protective symbols on the courtyard walls. You've never painted anything in your life. Your symbols come out lopsided and desperate. Someone compliments them anyway. Later, as the sun climbs higher, you're pulled aside by a girl with ink-stained fingers. She's a junior scribe, barely older than a child, and she needs help carrying tablets to the drying racks before the midday heat warps them. You balance the heavy slabs on your arms like a waiter serving bricks. The script is tight and beautiful, lists hymns, maybe a letter or two. She walks beside you, telling you how each one took an hour to etch, and how the high priest insists on double-checking all spelling of the goddess's name. One wrong wedge, and the whole blessing's invalid. At the racks, she shows you how to prop the tablets at an angle so the wind can pass over them evenly. It's like they're napping, she says with a soft smile. You return to the plaza, arms dusty and stomach rumbling. A man is frying onions and barley cakes on a hot plate of iron. You offer him a smooth riverstone from your pouch, the only thing you have. He nods once and hands you a cake. It's the best thing you've eaten in weeks. Crispy edges, soft center. It actually tastes like something other than dirt and obligation. You eat while watching two dogs chase each other in circles around a merchant's cart. The merchant shouts, waving a broom. The dogs are unconcerned. One jumps into a sack of lentils. The crowd laughs. Even the merchant smiles eventually. The moment feels like a breath, short, pure, and precious. In the afternoon, you're asked to assist at the public well. The pulley's jammed and the ropes frayed. You join 3 others, 2 men and a woman, and hoist a new system into place, lashing it with knots you barely understand. One man hums an old drinking song. The woman jokes that you tie rope like someone from the mountains. You pretend that's a compliment. Once the well is working again, the crowd cheers softly. People begin filling jars, cups, skins. You catch your reflection in the water's sun-darkened eyes, sharper hair longer, but somehow lighter. That evening, the temple hosts a small gathering to bless the rebuilt kiln. It's not a grand ceremony, just a few candles, a quiet chant, and a simple offering. You stand at the edge listening. The storyteller isn't there. But someone else steps forward, the young girl from the dream readings. She holds a tablet in both hands and begins to recite a tale. Her voice is soft but sure. She speaks of a time when the gods walked among mortals, but no one noticed because they looked too much like the rest of us. A goddess wept in a muddy street, and a farmer gave her his cloak without asking. For this, his crops grew golden. Another man demanded proof of divinity and was turned into a fish. A very grumpy fish. Historians still debate, she says, whether the story is true, but maybe it doesn't matter. You smile in the dark. As the gathering disperses, you walk home slowly, feet dragging slightly on the stones. The stars are out. The wind is soft. Somewhere nearby, someone plays a flute. The melody floats like smoke over rooftops and echoes down alleyways. You crawl onto your mat and look at your ceiling. You trace the cracks with your eyes like constellations. You close them and feel for the first time in a long time that sleep is coming easily. You've lived through taxes, storms, omens, donkeys, sewage canals, funerals, and one very uncomfortable scribal apprenticeship. And you're still here. Part 13. The next day begins with smoke, not fire, not yet, but the promise of it, thin tendrils curling from the western edge of the city where the potters live and work. You smell it before you see it. That mix of scorched reeds, drying clay, and something acrid that turns your stomach before breakfast. You follow the column of smoke through alleyways still slick with dew. When you arrive, you see the kiln again. The kiln, the one that collapsed before. It's intact now, rebuilt, but something's wrong. A large vessel has exploded inside. Shards of half-fired pottery scatter across the ground like angry bones. The workers stand frozen. One of them limps forward, face smudged with ash. It was the glaze, he mutters. Too wet. Or the air was wrong. Or maybe... He trails off, not finishing the sentence. No one ever says it outright anymore, but it hangs in the air like a curse. Maybe the gods are still angry. You're handed a broom before you can offer an opinion. So you sweep. Carefully. Reverently. Some pieces still hold their shape handles, rims, even the impression of a fish etched in what's now useless clay. You stack them in a basket and carry them to the discard pit, where other ruined dreams go to crumble. The master potter, a wiry woman with one eye and zero patience, mutters instructions about starting over. The clay remembers, she says, even when we don't. You don't know if she's talking about the material or the city. Maybe both. By midday, the air has cleared. The kiln smolders gently. The scent of panic has faded into the usual background aroma of sweat and smoke. You're free to go. You head toward the library. Yes, Mesopotamia has a library, though it's more of a dry room with racks of tablets stacked like loaves of bread. The scribes guard it jealously, but today the junior scribe you helped earlier gives you a nod. She waves you in and whispers, "Don't touch anything round." You browse the shelves, or racks really. Eyes scanning over titles pressed into clay, royal decrees. Trade manifests, omens, observed dreams recorded. One tablet is just a long list of fish and how they misbehaved. Another details a marriage contract in such dry clinical terms that you almost fall asleep standing. But then you find it. A small tablet thinner than the others, tucked behind a dusty ledger about barley storage quotas. You pull it out and squint. The script is old, even older than most. Angular, confident, and brief. A single line: he came from another place. He walked among us. He returned to dust. You run your fingers over the grooves. It could mean anything, or everything. You want to ask someone, but the room is quiet, the moment private. So you slip the tablet back into its place, letting it whisper to the dark. Outside, the sun is beginning its descent. You wander toward the temple steps just as the priests are preparing the lamps for evening rites. Small fires are lit in stone basins, flickering shadows across statues and walls. You sit nearby, watching, not praying, just watching. A child asks if you're one of the temple watchers. You shake your head. He looks at you again, more carefully this time. "You smell like bricks and fish," he says. You shrug. That's pretty accurate. He offers you a lotus pod. You chew it slowly, the seeds earthy and bitter but strangely comforting. Later, as dusk settles fully, you're invited to a neighbor's home for a simple meal. Stewed lentils, flatbread, a little honey scraped from the edge of a broken jar. It's the kind of dinner that tastes like effort, not extravagance. The family speaks in soft voices about things that matter: which reeds to cut tomorrow, how to fix a cracked wall, whether the moon is waxing or waning, and what that might mean for crop yields. Someone tells a joke about a priest, a donkey, and a runaway tablet. Everyone laughs. You feel like part of the furniture. And somehow that feels right. After the meal, the family's eldest daughter brings out a small clay flute and plays a tune you've never heard before. It starts soft, like a breeze, then winds upward, curling like incense toward the stars. A baby in the corner stops crying. Even the dogs outside fall silent. When the song ends, no one claps. It just fades like water into sand. You step outside and walk home under a sky filled with unfamiliar constellations. You know them now, not their names, but their shapes. The one that looks like a fishhook, the crooked line that always points to the Ziggurat. Your hut is dark when you arrive. You lie down on your mat, pull the cloth over your chest and exhale. There's no lion charm anymore. No omens whispering in your ear. No scribes assigning you copywork. Just you, a sky full of stars, and the knowledge that tomorrow is waiting. and you'll meet it the same way you've met every other day in ancient Mesopotamia. One breath at a time. Part 14. This morning something feels different. You can't explain it. The city looks the same: mud brick walls, reed doors, smoke curling lazily from cooking fires. The streets carry the same mixture of noise and grit and donkey. But there's something in the air today. A sense that things are about to shift. Like the way the wind changes right before a sandstorm, even if the sky is still clear. You begin the day with a task you didn't ask for: water hauling. A city worker, his arms so thin they seem more vine than muscle, presses a bucket into your hands and points toward the river. North Bank, he says. We're digging. You nod. You've stopped asking questions. Not because you're passive, but because here the work answers them all, eventually. At the river, a team of laborers is building a new channel, an effort to redirect flow before the next flood season. You join in, carrying bucket after bucket of brown water to dampen the hard ground, preparing it for spade and shovel. It's heavy work, monotonous and slow, but somehow peaceful. You fall into rhythm with the others. No one talks much. The sound of feet in wet earth, the slosh of water, the occasional grunt or cough, it's a kind of music. And then someone shouts. You all freeze. A shovel strikes something beneath the mud. Not stone, not tree root, bone. Within moments, the sight becomes chaos. Supervisors bark orders. A priest is summoned. Everyone backs away from the half-buried skeleton, now jutting out of the clay like the hand of a forgotten god. The bones are long bleached, curled in a fetal position. A pot lies beside the skull. It's decorated with the image of a lion eating the moon. The priest kneels and whispers something into the soil. You stand near the edge, watching as the remains are slowly uncovered. Someone says it must be a king from the city before this one. Another suggests a criminal buried outside proper grounds. A third claims this was once a sacred well, and disturbing it will bring misfortune. The priest finally speaks. He stays here. The pit is recovered. Offerings are placed on top: bread oil, a handful of copper rings. Everyone leaves quietly, except you. You linger for a moment, staring at the spot where the bones vanished. You feel something, not fear exactly, more like a weight settling in your chest. A reminder: under this city, there's another, and under that, another still. Cities built on cities. Lives stacked like tablets. All dust now. Back in the city, the mood has shifted. The riverbank incident has already turned to gossip. Children act out the scene in pantomime, pretending to find bones beneath their soup bowls. A woman swears she saw the skeleton wink at her. A merchant claims his uncle once dug up a queen, but only found 3 toes and a curse. You pass the storyteller near the plaza. He's not telling tales today. He's drawing something in the dirt, symbols maybe. A map. You don't interrupt. Instead, you head toward the orchard. It's barely an orchard, just a fenced area with a few squat fig trees and a single date palm that leans like it's thinking of retirement. You're told to help mend the fence. Wild goats have been sneaking in again, treating the sacred figs like an all-you-can-eat buffet. As you hammer wooden pegs into the dry ground, an old man joins you. He doesn't speak for a while, just works side by side in silence. Then, as the last post is set, he says, "Everything in this city has been buried at least once, even the people still breathing." You look at him. He smiles faintly, but some things grow back. In the evening, a procession begins near the temple. Not a festival, a vigil. Dozens walk slowly through the streets, carrying oil lamps and whispering prayers. Not for the gods, but for the city itself, for the bones under the streets, for the memories no one remembers. You join them. You hold a lamp. You walk, and with every step the silence grows louder. Not empty, not hollow, just full. At the temple steps, people leave their lamps in rows. A low hum begins, half prayer, half lullaby. The firelight flickers across faces, old, young, soot-stained, hopeful, tired. You see the girl again, the one who reads dreams. She doesn't speak, but she presses a dried flower into your hand. A poppy. You mouth, "Thank you." She nods, then vanishes into the crowd. You return to your hut late the night, pressing against your skin like a blanket pulled from the river. You lie down, poppy in hand, and close your eyes. And this time, your dreams are calm. No floods, no bone pits, no gods whispering omens through cracked ceilings, just stillness, just breath, just the quiet miracle of still being here. Part 15. You wake to the sound of singing, not the usual chants from the temple or lullabies murmured by tired mothers. This is different, raw, off-key, and loud enough to rattle the dust from your walls. You sit up blinking in the pale light and recognize the voice, the storyteller. He's out before sunrise, marching down the main street singing an improvised ballad about a god who tried to invent sandals and ended up creating toads instead. You throw on your tunic grin despite yourself and follow the sound. A crowd forms. People laugh, toss him crumbs of bread, a fig, a cracked cup. He doesn't stop. He bellows the final line, and thus the river remembers what the mountain forgets, then bows dramatically and collapses onto a bench. New festival, he announces breathlessly. Today is the day of mistakes. You blink. That's not on any calendar. He grins. Exactly. And just like that, the day begins not with routine, but with play. Children run through the streets wearing tunics backward. Merchants sell bent pots and call them blessed by Enki's elbow. A man hands out cakes shaped like broken tools. Even the priests allow themselves a smirk or two, though they do so with the solemnity of someone pretending not to enjoy it. You're dragged into the spirit of it whether you want to be or not. A woman smears mud on your cheek and declares you king of errors. A group of teens crown you with a garland of burnt barley stalks. You're pushed onto an empty crate and told to recite your greatest mistake. You hesitate, then remember the time you mistook a temple ox for a wild one and nearly got trampled. They cheer. One of them throws you a roasted onion like it's gold. You eat it in 2 bites. Around midday, the mood shifts slightly. Not darker, just softer. A circle forms in the central courtyard where people begin sharing not just mistakes, but stories. Of near misses, of losses, of regrets. The kind that weigh you down like waterlogged clay. You hear about a woman who lost 3 sons to the river. About a man who once stole temple bread and was forgiven by the priest who caught him. About a girl who lit a fire during an eclipse and was exiled only to return years later with salt from another city. You're asked to speak. You don't plan to, but the silence opens just wide enough for you to fall into it. You tell them how you arrived confused barefoot with nothing but a name someone else gave you. You talk about the canal, the stables, the fever dream of omens and lions and donkeys. You mention the charm you left at the altar and the tablet in the library that said someone like you had come before. You don't know why you say it all, but you do. When you finish, no one claps. They just nod. And it's enough. In the afternoon, a storm threatens the edges of the sky. Not a dramatic one, just a few gray fingers trailing down from clouds that look like they've forgotten how to cry. The wind picks up. People begin closing shutters just in case. You take shelter beneath the awning of a fig vendor's stall. He's old, half asleep, but he offers you one. You bite into it slowly. It's overripe, sweet, a little sour. Good mistake, he says, gesturing to the fruit. You nod. Later, the city slows. People head home, laughter trailing behind them like incense smoke. The day of mistakes ends not with a ceremony, but with a collective sigh. A release, a shrug of the shoulders at life's absurdity. You walk to the river where the sky reflects faint hints of orange and gray. The water moves as it always does, steady, uncaring, ancient. You crouch near the edge, pick up a small clay shard and skip it across the surface. It hops twice, then sinks. Perfect. Behind you, someone approaches. It's the storyteller. He sits beside you, stretches his legs, and says, "You ever think you're dreaming all this?" You nod. He chuckles. Maybe we all are. Maybe it's the gods dreaming us. Maybe one day they'll wake up and poof, no more cities. No more barley. No more awkward fish-shaped bread. You look at him. He shrugs. Then again, maybe they dreamed us because they needed the stories. You sit together in silence for a while, the river murmuring beside you. As darkness settles, you return to your hut. The wind brushes the reeds above your door. The stars blink awake one by one. Somewhere someone hums a lullaby that drifts across rooftops like dust. You lie down, arms behind your head, and breathe. In the oldest city on earth, where every brick is baked from someone's past mistake, you fall asleep smiling. Because today, the world got it wrong, and that was exactly right. Part 16. You wake to laughter. Real laughter. Loud, unfiltered spilling through the cracks in your hut like morning light. It's not mockery, not the cautious chuckles you've grown used to. It's joy, the kind people don't even realize they're releasing, as if it escapes before they can stop it. You rise and follow the sound. At the corner of the plaza, a man is spinning in circles with a bucket on his head. Children chase him. An old woman is tossing handfuls of flower petals into the air. Someone plays a crooked lyre with missing strings, but no one cares it's music. What now, you ask, rubbing sleep from your eyes? A young boy with an overexcited expression points to a nearby wall where a tablet has been pinned for public display. You walk over. Today is the Festival of First Things. No one's entirely sure where it came from. Some claim it was declared by the priests. Others swear it was invented by a baker who burned his bread into bricks and decided to celebrate anyway. The rule is simple: if it's your first time doing something, today's the day to do it. Your name is already on the list. Someone must have added it for you. You blink, and just like that, you're swept into it. Your first job, carrying an elderly woman through a crowded street because she insists she's never been held like a sack of barley. You oblige. She laughs so hard she nearly drops her jar of honey. Next, you're handed a paintbrush. A priest gestures toward a temple wall. Your first mural, he says. Make it worthy. You stare at the blank surface for a long time, then draw the only thing you can think of: a donkey. With wings, wearing a crown. It's terrible. The priest gives you a solemn nod. It's perfect. By midday, the festival has taken over the city. A scribe writes his first poem in ink instead of stylus. A merchant eats his own figs rather than selling them. A temple guard tries to sing. Badly. A group of children climb a ziggurat staircase for the first time, stopping halfway up to scream their names into the wind. You're pulled into a game in the orchard involving blindfolds, figs, and a lot of falling. You win without understanding how. Your prize: a date fruit carved with a tiny face. Later, a group gathers near the library. They're writing wishes on clay shards. First wishes someone explains, and tossing them into a ceremonial fire. You hesitate. Then you write, "To stay even if I don't belong." You toss it in. The fire cracks, but no smoke rises. Just a tiny puff of steam and the smell of wet clay. As the sun begins to lower, a feast is laid out across the main plaza. Not a formal one, more of a chaotic picnic. Everyone brings something they've never cooked before. Some dishes are incredible. Others are artistic. You try something that tastes like onion dipped in regret. Then something else that's so sweet it makes your teeth hurt in the best way. You sit with the storyteller again, both of you chewing on something unidentifiable. So he says between bites, "What did you do for the first time?" You think, "Trusted a day to go well." He raises his cup. That counts. As dusk settles, torches are lit, and someone starts a song that the entire plaza seems to know instinctively. You hum along, pretending until your lips form the words before your brain can catch up. You've heard this before, somewhere. Maybe in a dream, maybe in a story. Maybe it's the city itself singing through your bones. You dance. You who arrived lost, barefoot, aching, afraid of everything and everyone. You who once believed survival meant silence. You dance, arms up, heart-thudding, body moving not with grace, but with certainty. The girl who reads dreams watches from a step nearby. She gives you a slow clap, then turns and disappears into the crowd. Night falls thick and warm, a velvet blanket pulled across the rooftops. The festival winds down. The plaza empties. You walk home alone, humming. At your door, you pause. Something is tucked under the mat. You bend down and pull out a small object wrapped in palm fiber. You open it. Your lion charm, the same one you left at the temple days, maybe weeks ago. You turn it over in your hand. Someone's etched a new symbol on the back, a spiral tight and neat. The mark of return. You don't cry, but you hold it tightly as you step inside. And when you lie down, charm on your chest, the city outside begins to sleep with you. You hear the breath of Mesopotamia, deep, ancient, never still. And for the first time, it doesn't sound like a warning. It sounds like home. Part 17. Today, the river rises, not in a catastrophic sweep away the huts kind of way, just enough to make the banks murky and the ferry ropes taut. Enough for the elders to squint and say, soon. Enough for the priests to light incense earlier than usual and trace extra spirals in the temple dust. You're awakened by the smell, mud silt and something rich and ancient, like the scent of pages in a book no one's opened in centuries. When you step outside, the world feels heavier. The city hums differently today. Not fearfully, more like anticipation, like a held breath. You're sent to the edge of the fields with a handful of others tasked with inspecting the flood markers. They're simple carved stones stacked beside the canal, notched with grooves. If the water reaches the third groove, the barley's safe. The fourth, it drowns. The fifth, it washes the whole city away. It's already past the second. You spend the morning reinforcing the levees, packing mud and straw along the banks, driving reeds into the ground like spikes against the water. Your fingers blister. Your arms shake. You don't stop. No one does. At midday, the overseer calls a break. You collapse beneath a palm tree beside the canal. Someone passes you a bowl of lentils. You eat slowly, chewing each grain like it contains prophecy. The river gurgles beside you, swollen and indifferent. Across the water, you see something. A figure, standing ankle-deep in the current, arms outstretched. You blink. Gone. You look around. No one else reacts. No one else saw. Or maybe they did, and they've just learned not to say anything. Back in the city, the mood is measured. Merchants move their stalls closer to higher ground. Children are told to stay inside. The storyteller is nowhere to be seen, and somehow that feels like a sign all by itself. Instead, you find yourself near the scribe's corner. The junior scribe, the one who let you copy your first official tablet, waves you over. Need hands, she says. Records must be moved. You help her stack the clay tablets carefully, reverently, like lifting memory itself. Each one holds a name, a contract, a whisper of something long ago. You cradle them as if the river could come rushing through the walls at any moment. As you stack, she mutters, "We keep everything in clay, and then spend our lives protecting it from water." You look at her. She sighs. "That's the whole city, isn't it, Mudfire, then? Fear of rain." You nod. You understand more than you ever wanted to. The afternoon is spent stacking sandbags, repositioning animal pens, and digging drainage channels. It's endless. It's exhausting. It's survival. And in all of it, you don't stop moving. You hear murmurs about how this flood is bigger than last year's, about how the river goddess is angry, about how the fish have been acting strange. 3 were found swimming backward, someone claims. Historians would likely disagree. But historians aren't here shoveling mud with blistered palms. As dusk falls, the sky opens. Rain, cold and clean. It falls gently at first, then heavier. It hits your face, your shoulders, your tongue. You raise your eyes to the darkening clouds and let it wash the salt from your skin. Around you, others do the same. Some pray, some curse, some just stare. You head to the temple square where the priests have lit a line of small fires in front of the altar steps. The high priest speaks not loudly but firmly. His words are swallowed by the rain, but the tone says, "Enough, we are not afraid, even if we should be." One by one, people step forward with offerings. Oil, bread, figurines, hair. You've seen it before. But this time you're moved. You reach into your tunic and pull out something new, the poppy the dream girl gave you. You're not sure why you still have it. It should have dried up or crumbled. But it didn't. You place it gently at the base of the altar flame. It sizzles. The rain slows. That night you lie awake listening to the river just beyond the city wall. It's louder now, closer. But it hasn't broken through. Yet. You press your hand to the floor. The stone is cool, solid, but underneath it you imagine silt-swirling bones, whispering stories waiting to rise again. You hold your lion charm in one hand, the memory of fire in the other. You don't know what tomorrow will bring, but you'll meet it. Just like every day before, just like Mesopotamia taught you. Part 18. The river breaks at dawn. It doesn't roar, it doesn't scream. It seeps, slowly, relentlessly, like it always meant to. You wake to the squelch of wet earth beneath your mat and the muted panic of voices outside your hut. When you throw open the reed curtain, the street is gone, replaced by a shallow stream swirling with straw-lost sandals and a terrified chicken clinging to a clay pot. You wade outside. The water's already ankle-deep and rising. A neighbor yells something about the west wall collapsing. Another shouts back about the livestock floating. Someone tries to build a makeshift dam with firewood and hope. You're handed a basket. No instructions, just a basket. You understand anyway. Evacuation starts now. You join the others carrying grain tablets and jars of oil to higher ground. The hill near the Ziggurat becomes a refuge, a stack of bodies and baskets and prayers. Children cling to parents. Elders sit wrapped in cloaks, eyes closed, lips moving in ancient rhythm. Somewhere a donkey brays like it's reciting the end of the world. You make trip after trip, back and forth, back and forth. By midday, the water reaches your knees. A boat appears, crudely lashed reeds with a wooden frame. 3 boys push it through the flooded alleyways, ferrying bundles of firewood, and one very confused cat. You help them pull it toward the main plaza, where more families gather on rooftops and stairways. You hear the priests chanting from the top of the Ziggurat. Low, deep, persistent, like trying to outvoice the river. Then the storyteller appears. Soaked, muddy, barefoot, he stands atop a half-submerged cart and raises his arms. Let it be known, he shouts, that Mesopotamia floats not because it's waterproof, but because we're too stubborn to drown. Someone laughs. You do too. Lightly, carefully. Then harder. It spreads. Through the fear. Through the ache. Through the cold. Laughter stubborn and brilliant echoes off the walls. The storyteller starts a tale, voice hoarse but determined. There was once a man who built a boat not to escape the flood, but to teach it manners. You don't catch all the words, because suddenly you're pulled into another task, forming a chain to save the city's grain. You take your place beside the junior scribe who grunts as she hauls a sack across slippery stones. If these get wet, she pants, we're all eating regret for a month. You pass sacks, stack them, shield them with whatever you can. Baskets, blankets, broken bits of wall. Hours blur. At some point the sky clears, the rain stops, but the river keeps coming. At dusk you find yourself on the Ziggurat's 3rd tier, staring down at the city that was. Brown water glistens in the fading light. Roofs peak like islands from a sea of silt. A child tosses a stick into the flood and cheers as it floats. Her mother smiles with tears in her eyes. The high priest calls for silence. He lifts a tablet and reads slowly, carefully. It's an old record. A flood from long ago. He doesn't embellish, just recites. The number of days it lasted. The fields it swallowed. The names remembered. The names lost. Then he lowers the tablet and simply says, "We will write again." The people bow their heads. You don't. You look at the horizon, because you're already writing it. Not in clay, in muscle, in memory, in the ache of your back and the calluses on your hands. You spend the night on the Ziggurat, pressed between others. sharing warmth, sharing breath. The wind shifts. You feel the river begin to recede just slightly. And though the city sleeps in water, its heart is still beating. So are you. Part 19. By morning, the water has stopped rising. It hasn't drained, not yet. But it's paused, as if the river, after swallowing half the city, has decided to take a breath. The silence it leaves behind is heavy, an exhausted kind of peace. Not celebration. Not relief. Just stillness. You sit on the Ziggurat steps beside the junior scribe. She's wrapped in a reed mat, clutching a damp tablet. Her thumb rubs its surface like a worry stone. "This one held," she says quietly. You nod. Around you, people begin to stir. Families stretch out aching limbs. Children yawn and ask if they can go home, though they don't quite know where that is anymore. Smoke rises from fires lit in clay pots, the kind you can carry. Someone brews a thin gruel in a cracked basin, the smell more comforting than the taste could ever be. The priest offers a short prayer, just 3 words. "We are here," and that's enough. You volunteer for one of the first missions into the waterlogged city. A small team forms 2 ox handlers, a carpenter, the boy who ferried cats on a reed boat, and you. You wade knee-deep into the submerged streets, poles in hand, to feel the road beneath. Your hut is still standing. Barely. The roof leans. The mat is ruined. Your jar of barley is now an aquarium, but the structure holds. And your lion charm still tucked where you left it last night, pressed against a wall beam, the spiral marking still clear. You carry it with you. The team moves on. At each home, someone knocks gently before entering, as if the walls still remember their owners. You find soaked bedding, swollen tablets, baskets turned inside out by the current. And yet so many things remain. At the scribe's house, you rescue a bundle of wrapped scrolls, miraculously dry in their clay container. She holds them to her chest like they're newborns. "This one's a poem," she murmurs. "I think it's about geese." At the orchard, the trees stand like survivors of war, leaves gone, trunks bruised, but rooted. A single green fig hangs from the top branch of one tree. You reach for it, hand trembling. You don't pick it. You just smile and move on. The afternoon is spent clearing debris. You shovel silt from the temple steps, passing broken cups, a fish skeleton, and a perfect clay whistle shaped like a turtle. A boy blows it, and the sound is so absurd everyone around him stops and laughs. Later, you help raise the fence at the animal pens. A cow returns, lowing like she's offended the city disappeared. A dog shakes itself dry, then promptly rolls in the mud again. A chicken is found roosting on a half-submerged statue of Enlil. The priests don't know what to make of it. Someone jokes that Enlil has a new high priest. By sunset, the city is still wet, still wounded, but not broken. The storyteller returns. He stands barefoot in the plaza robe, streaked with mud and ash. He says nothing at first, just looks around. Then he begins. There once was a city swallowed by the river, not because the gods were cruel, but because the city had forgotten how to breathe. He walks slowly as he talks, weaving through the crowd. But the people remembered. They tied rope from heart to heart. They passed buckets, prayers, and bread. And when the river saw this, it paused. He stops beside you. And when the city rose again, it wasn't because of bricks, or temples, or clever walls. He points a finger gently at your chest. It was because someone stayed. You look down. Your lion charm rests against your ribs, warm from your skin. The stars emerge one by one. Fires are lit again, not out of fear, but because light is a language the darkness still respects. That night, you help rebuild the altar steps. The stones are heavier than you remember, but your hands know what to do. Someone sings, someone hums, someone writes your name on a dry tablet and smiles. And you stand in the middle of this ancient, broken, surviving city and whisper, "We are here." Part 20. The morning comes quietly. No drums, no proclamations, just the soft shuffle of wet sandals on drying stone and the rhythmic creak of rebuilt doors being tested by cautious hands. You wake before the sun crests the ziggurat, not from duty or dread, but from habit, the kind of habit that comes after surviving something with your body and soul still mostly intact. You eat a bowl of plain barley with a handful of dates someone left by your door. There's no note, just the offering. You chew slowly the sweetness like a hymn in your mouth. Today is the first true day of recovery. You're sent to the west wall, not to defend it, to measure it. The engineers want to see how high the water reached, how far it pushed the clay, what damage lies unseen in the foundation. You trace water lines, mark cracks, tap bricks with your knuckles to listen for hollows. It's not exciting. It's necessary. Beside you, the carpenter from the flood team takes notes on a damp piece of palm bark. Everything swells after water, he mutters. Wood, walls, people. You nod. You both move slowly along the edge of the city, where the land transitions from structure to soil, where the flood left its signature, not in destruction, but in reshaping. You come to a section where the wall has bowed outward slightly. Not a breach, but close. A silent warning. You mark it with chalk. 3 lines. A signal to return. Later, you head toward the lower market district. What used to be a tight maze of stalls and noise is now an open canvas of muddy paths and blank spaces where stalls once stood. A few vendors have begun returning, setting out half-dry goods, restacking baskets, and calling out with rusty voices. You help an old man prop up his pottery stand. Most of the pots are gone, but he has one. Just one. He places it carefully on the wooden table, brushes off a thin film of silt, and says, "This one waited." You don't ask what that means. You just nod. By midday, the temple square is filled not with ritual, but with action. Reeds are being delivered by the bundle. Clay is mixed in giant troughs. Children stomp in the mud to soften it while singing songs that include verses like, "Don't eat the god mud. It's not for you." You're asked to carry bricks, then mix mortar, then carry more bricks. Your muscles ache, but not the way they did when you first arrived. This ache is earned, familiar, almost welcome. As you work, you hear someone reading aloud from a recovered tablet. To build again, one must first kneel, not to gods, but to the earth, to the place that held your feet when everything else ran away. You don't know who wrote it, but it lodges in your chest like a seed. In the late afternoon, the storyteller finds you. You're stacking dried reeds, organizing them by thickness, when he sits beside you with a bowl of dates and a deeply unserious expression. "Would you rather be a river fish or a desert lizard?" he asks. You raise an eyebrow. He shrugs. "It's for a story." You think for a moment. "Fish," you say. They remember the shape of floods. He nods, satisfied. The lizard forgets on purpose. He offers you a date. You take it. Then he leans in. They're planning something, not the priests, the people. You look at him. "A ceremony," he says. "Not the kind with incense and chanting, the other kind. The kind that says, we're still here and we want the gods to notice us laughing." You smile. You're beginning to like those kinds of ceremonies. That night it happens, not formally, not with announcements, but suddenly. All over the city, lamps are lit, dozens, then hundreds. Not in temples, in homes, on walls, on rafts, in hands. They flicker like stars fallen to the mud, and people begin walking slowly, carefully together. You follow, to the center of the plaza. A fire is lit not for sacrifice, but for stories. The girl who reads dreams stands beside it. She doesn't speak, she just gestures, and the storyteller steps forward. He begins the tale of a city that drowned and lived, a city that cracked and stood, a city that remembered its name, even when its voice was buried in water. He speaks of a stranger who arrived barefoot and afraid, who learned the names of winds, the sounds of donkeys, and the weight of clay, who stayed. He doesn't name you, but everyone looks at you anyway. And then the people begin to speak. Not one by one, all at once. Soft stories, small memories. Someone talks about the day their neighbors saved their sheep. Another about the first meal after the flood. A child says she saw a star in the water that winked. It's not a ceremony. It's something older. You sit in the glow of firelight and feel it, that invisible thread woven between everyone present. You're no longer the outsider. You never really were. When the fire dims and the stories fade, you walk home with a reed torch in hand, its light sputtering in the breeze. You step into your hut, place the lion charm back on the wall beam, and sit in the center of the floor. You breathe in the scent of reed ash and river. You close your eyes. Tomorrow there will be more bricks, more mud, more mistakes, more music, and you'll be there for all of it. Because you, like the city, are no longer just surviving. You are building. Part 21. By now your hands have taken on the color of the city. They're the same tone as the bricks you've laid, the reeds you've split, the clay you've shaped. Brown and sun-worn, with lines that catch dust and never let go. You no longer scrub them clean. Not because you've given up, but because you've begun to understand. This dust is not dirt, it's memory. You wake to the sound of construction. Real construction. Not patching, not bailing. Building. The floodwaters have mostly receded now. What they've left behind is not ruin, but space. The streets are wide again, though the edges remain soft. The walls are standing, but new cracks trace across the plaster like river veins. The city doesn't want to go back to how it was. It wants to become something else, and it wants you to help. You begin the day with a group near the northern gate, hauling fresh brick molds from the kiln. The potters work faster than ever, their fires burning day and night. Every time a cart rolls past, you hear someone yell, "More clay," followed immediately by, "No, the other kind." You carry load after load, sweat darkening your tunic. You build alongside men and women you once only passed in the streets. A baker with flour-stained arms. A woman who sings to herself when no one's listening. A quiet man who speaks only to birds and only when drunk. No one gives orders. Everyone just moves. The structure you're working on isn't a home, or a wall, or even a temple. It's a school. The first of its kind, someone says. You pause, squinting at the wooden beams being raised, the reed mats ready to hang as awnings. "We already have scribes," you say. A boy next to you shrugs. Not everyone wants to worship numbers. You hammer the frame harder. By midday, someone announces that there will be music, not a performance, a rehearsal. You're curious. You wander through the narrow paths of the market district, stepping around puddles and new seedlings pushing through the muck. At the center of the plaza, a circle forms. People with flutes, lyres, and drums. Some real, some crafted from repurposed pots and fish bones, tune and test, whisper and laugh. The conductor is a child no older than 10. She bangs her stick on a rock twice, raises her arms, and begins. The music is not good, but it is alive. It stumbles, surges, collapses, and rises again. People join in with clapping, stamping, shouting. You find yourself laughing at how completely off rhythm the left side of the group is. Someone adds lyrics that don't rhyme. A woman spins in a circle robe, flaring like a sail. It's joyful noise, the kind only survivors make. Afterward, the conductor bows with great ceremony. Someone tosses her a date cake. She catches it with her teeth. You wander to the edge of the plaza and sit. The girl who reads dreams is already there. She doesn't look at you, just says, "You're waiting for something." You shrug. She leans back against a wall, folding her arms. Everyone is. We pretend we're not, but we are. We're all waiting for something to come back, or to leave, or to explain why we're still here when others aren't. You glance at her. She shrugs. It's not a bad thing. Just don't wait forever. You nod, and you get up. In the late afternoon, a group of children pull you into their game. It involves drawing in the mud and yelling at birds. You never quite figure out the rules. Somehow you win. Your prize is a snail shell with a hole in it, a wind charm, they explain. If you blow through it during a storm, it makes the storm go around your house. You hang it by your door that night. The wind picks up as the sun disappears. You hear it whistle through alleyways and rattle loose shutters, but your hut stands still. You lie back on your mat, staring at the beams above, tracing the new lines in the wood with your eyes. Tomorrow you'll return to the school. The mud walls need smoothing. The reed mats need cutting. The city needs people who can hold a thing steady while it dries. And you're ready, because you've stopped surviving. You've started shaping. Part 22. There's a rumor spreading through the city this morning, traveling faster than the fish carts and more persistent than temple gossip. Someone says the king is coming back, not passing through, not inspecting, not watching from a shaded litter while servants fan his royal eyebrows. Returning to stay. You're halfway through binding a reed mat for the school roof when a boy runs past, breathless, shouting. He's a nipper. He's crossing the canal. He brought horses. You glance up from your work. The reed splitter beside you spits into the dirt. He'll bring taxes, not horses. Still, the city responds. The streets are swept. The priests dust off their more expensive incense. The temple doors are scrubbed until they shine like sunlit clay. Even the scribes polish their tablets and ink new prayers in a script so fine it could pass for spider silk. You finish the mat and sling it over your shoulder. The school is nearly done now. Walls drying, beams solid, the air inside sweet with fresh rushes and possibility. Someone painted a sun over the doorway. Someone else added a line of figures holding hands. You don't remember who started it. You only know it feels right. By mid-morning, the bell at the temple rings once, then again, then twice more. He's here. You join the crowd that flows like water through the streets toward the Ziggurat steps. It's not mandatory. It never is, but absence would be noticed. And after everything you want to see. The king arrives on foot. That surprises everyone. He wears no crown, just a linen robe stained by travel. His sandals are dusty. His eyes are sharp, not cruel, just precise. He stops in the plaza and looks around. Not at the ziggurat, not at the banners hastily strung up between market stalls, but at the people. He nods once, then he speaks, softly. No flourish, no fanfare, just words. I heard your city cracked. I see it still stands. No one replies. He continues. I see children with new ink on their hands. I see fig trees blooming out of mud. I see bricks that do not match but hold. He pauses. You have rewritten yourselves. That is the work of gods, or fools, or both. Someone snorts. Someone else bows. You just stand still, the sun warming the back of your neck, the weight of the reed mat still across your shoulders. The king gestures to the temple steps. I won't stay long, but while I am here, the city writes its own rules. A murmur runs through the crowd like a breeze. He walks past you, and for a brief moment your eyes meet. He doesn't look through you. He sees you. Then he's gone. And life, as it always does, begins again. You return to the school. You climb the ladder and lash the reed mat to the roof beam, fingers moving without thought. Below, the children gather with scraps of clay and sticks, drawing maps of cities they plan to build in the sky. One of them calls up to you. We need more bricks, you call back, then start shaping. They cheer. In the evening, there's no ceremony, just a meal. Everyone brings what they can. A little flour, a few olives, something fermented and questionably safe. You sit beside the junior scribe, the storyteller, the reed splitter, the girl who reads dreams. Someone lights a fire, someone sings. The king does not attend, but his absence is not empty. It is somehow respectful. After the meal, the storyteller stands and announces, "From this day forth, the school shall be called the House of Second Chances." Everyone claps, even the priests, even you. Back at your hut, the stars are blinding. Too many to count, too many to name. You hang your wet tunic near the doorway and sit cross-legged on the floor, watching the light flicker through your wind charm. The lion charm rests beside you. You think about how far you've come, from canal trenches to tablet copying, from sewage duty to temple rooftops, from silence to story. You're no longer just a visitor in this place. You are part of its clay. And every morning now when you rise, you don't ask what the city needs. You ask, what can I shape today? Part 23. The heat returns with no warning. It slides over the city like a fresh layer of clay, thick and sticky, clinging to walls, to skin, to thought. The floodwaters have retreated, leaving behind slick alleys and a dampness that seeps into everything: mats, grain stores, even dreams. You wake early already, sweating, and step outside into air that feels like it hasn't moved in centuries. Someone nearby mutters, "It's the revenge of the sun." You believe it. The river's edge is quiet now, the current low and slow. A few fishermen sit on overturned jars, lines dropped lazily into the water. You hear no shouting, no haggling, no songs, just the occasional slap of a tail on the surface and the soft click of a clay cup being set down on stone. The city rests, but your hands do not. Today you're helping finish the school courtyard. The walls are done. The roof is thatched. The benches have been carved from salvaged beams, but the floor, still rough, still littered with debris, needs smoothing. You grab a flat plank kneel and begin scraping. Back and forth, back and forth. The rhythm settles into you. The girl who reads dreams sits nearby, watching the dust curl and settle. She doesn't speak. She just hums, soft, slow, like she's remembering something not quite her own. You pause and glance over. She says, "It's too quiet." You nod. Even the wind's hiding. She leans back on her hands. The quiet days are the ones the gods watch most closely. You return to your scraping. Later, the junior scribe arrives, arms full of tablets. She sets them down on a reed mat and begins sorting. Some are lessons, others stories. One is just a long list of animals spotted near the northern field, including mysteriously fish with legs. You glance up. She shrugs. Might be a frog or someone's joke. In the corner of the courtyard, a group of children practice writing in the dust. Their lines wobble. Their spacing is wild. One of them draws a sun that looks suspiciously like a loaf of bread. You can't help but smile. They're learning. You're watching the birth of memory. At midday, the heat deepens. The shadows retreat into themselves. The walls radiate warmth. You sit under the awning, drinking something that tastes like regret and overripe plums. A man wanders by, pulling a cart full of cracked pots. "Trade you a bowl for a poem," he says to no one in particular. The storyteller, appearing from the shade, replies, "Only if the bowl leaks in the shape of a star." The deal is struck. The poem is terrible. The laughter is honest. As the sun begins to slip, you head toward the river. You need to see it even now, even still. The banks are dry, the mud cracked like old skin. You squat at the edge and trace one of the breaks with your fingertip. Everything here breaks, but not everything stays broken. You pick up a stone shaped like a tooth and slip it into your pouch. A charm, a reminder. You're not sure. On your way back, you pass the storyteller again. He's sitting cross-legged, carving something into a stick with a fishbone. You stop. "What are you doing?" you ask. "Teaching this stick a story." He replies without looking up. You raise an eyebrow. He grins. "If we all disappear, I want the trees to know who we were." You walk home slowly. The city glows gold in the dusk, the buildings casting long shadows like arms stretching towards something just out of reach. The fig trees have started to bloom again. A goat bleats from a rooftop. A flute plays far off. Your hut feels cooler tonight. The air moves. Just barely. You sit in the doorway and watch the stars rise one by one like cautious candles. You press the tooth-shaped stone to your chest. You whisper your name, not the one you were given, but the one you've earned. The one this city has shaped in silence and sweat. Tomorrow you'll return to the school, or maybe to the well, or maybe to the temple wall that cracked in the night. It doesn't matter. You'll go where you're needed, because this city may not remember how you arrived, but it will remember what you built. Part 24. You wake to the smell of wet stone and roasting grain. It's not your grain. It's drifting in from somewhere else. Someone's early start, someone's small victory over mold and time. You breathe it in and feel for the first time in days a quiet lightness settle in your chest. The heat has broken, not vanished, just softened. The breeze has returned, not strong but real. It moves through the alleys like a hesitant guest, lifting curtains, swirling dust, rattling charms tied to lintels. Today you're called to the southern edge of the city. A new canal is being dug, not repaired new. The old one had served for generations. It carried water to the barley fields, to the temple baths, to the homes of those who'd learned to wake and sleep by its rhythm. But the flood reshaped the river's edge. The old canal is no longer trustworthy, and so new paths must be carved. You're handed a spade and led to a line of workers already knee-deep in earth. The air smells of clay and river and possibility. The overseer, a thin man with a voice like dry papyrus, marks a line in the soil. From here to there, he says, we follow the stars. You don't ask for clarification. You've learned by now that everything here follows the stars, even when no one understands how. You dig. Slowly, carefully. The sun rises behind you. Birds scatter from the marshes. A woman sings to keep rhythm, her voice rough and low. The beat of metal on soil becomes a kind of heartbeat. Each lifted clod is a breath. Each turned stone a memory. At one point you pause to wipe your brow and glance down the trench. You can see it now. The canal is not just a ditch. It's a vein, a promise, a thread tying the city to something beyond itself. The boy ferrying water nearby trips and spills a jar. It soaks your feet. The others laugh. You do too, lightly. By midday, the workers are tired but smiling. The line is straight. The angle is good. The water, when it comes, will flow well. You sit under a shade cloth with the others eating flatbread dipped in date syrup. Someone shares a story about a time when the river flowed backward for a whole morning. Another adds a tale of a carp that knew the future, but refused to speak it unless tickled. You don't question it. You just listen. After lunch, you're asked to carve markers. These are small stones, not the ceremonial kind, just guides set along the canal's path so future hands will know where the water should go. You etch a simple shape into yours, a wave, not perfect, but clear. The girl who reads dreams passes by. She looks at your marker. She smiles. That one will last, she says. As the day cools, the canal team wraps up. You wash your hands in a basin of silty water and walk slowly back into the city, the dust trailing behind you like a robe. In the plaza, something new is happening. Children are painting, not just symbols, scenes. One wall shows a boat with wings. Another has a city floating on clouds. One child has drawn a house made of stars. The paint is crude berries, mud-crushed leaves, but the effect is undeniable. You stop and watch. The junior scribe stands nearby, arms crossed, watching too. They're inventing myths already, she says. And we haven't even finished rebuilding. You shrug. Maybe that's the point. She doesn't argue. That night, a drum beats softly from the Ziggurat's highest tier. Not a warning, not a ceremony, just one slow rhythm, a reminder, a call to stillness. You lie in your hut, watching the shadows shift as the moonlight slides across the floor. You're tired, but not in the way you used to be. This is the tired of work done, of things repaired, of direction found. Your lion charm hangs by the door, its spiral still faintly visible. Your wind charm taps gently against the beam. You close your eyes and let the sound of the drum carry you into sleep. Not escape, not forgetting, just rest. Because tomorrow the water will flow, and you'll be there to guide it. Part 25. The canal flows by midday, not with fanfare, not with ceremony, just with the quiet certainty of something done right. It begins as a trickle, a thin line of water curling through the trench, catching light like a moving thread of silver. Then the current gathers, spreads, and begins to hum a low, steady sound that seems to settle into the bones of the city. You are there when it happens, standing knee-deep in fresh mud, hands on your knees, watching the water arrive like an old friend returning home. The overseer doesn't shout, he just nods. She listens, he says, meaning the river. Not always, but sometimes. The workers cheer anyway. Somewhere behind you, a pot cracks in celebration. You help finish the last section, clearing debris from the mouth of the channel, anchoring woven mats to slow erosion, stamping the earth down with your heels. Every motion feels like punctuation at the end of a sentence you didn't realize you'd been writing. The river bends, and the city breathes again. That evening, the plaza is filled not with a festival, but with stories. People gather around low fires. No single voice leads. It moves like water from speaker to speaker. A merchant talks about his lost fig trees, how one branch grew back crooked and strange, but now bears twice the fruit. A child tells of a frog who survived the flood by singing until the water turned away. A midwife shares a dream where the city floated like a basket and landed in the stars. You speak too, not with a flourish, not with a storyteller's flair, just simply. You speak of the first night you arrived, of the canal, the donkeys, the sickness, the girl with the dream eyes, the lion charm, the flood, the song, the smell of barley burned just slightly too long, and how you stayed. The circle is quiet, then someone claps, then another, and then the sound swells, not loud, not chaotic, but steady, like applause made of gratitude instead of noise. A boy with a reed pipe plays a tune. It's off-key and perfect. Later you sit beneath a fig tree watching the stars. The storyteller drops beside you, folding his legs like he's known this tree his whole life. He hands you a stone. It's small, warm from his hand and carved crudely. A lion with wings. Didn't have time to add a crown, he mutters. Maybe next week. You chuckle. I think she likes it better this way. He nods. You don't say who she is. You both know. The girl who reads dreams walks past barefoot humming. She pauses long enough to look at you and say, "You're a story, now you know." You raise an eyebrow. What kind? She shrugs. One the city will remember when the river rises again. And then she disappears into the darkness. You lie back in the dust, the lion stone warm in your palm, and close your eyes. You think about how many lives this city has held, how many hands have shaped its bricks, how many footsteps have worn paths into its bones. You are one of them now. When sleep comes, it comes gently. The wind moves through the reeds, the stars blink slowly above, and the river calm now flows in silence beside it all. Part 26. It's planting season again. The mud left behind by the flood has dried into something rich, dark, and heavy, a gift, some say, from the angry gods who changed their minds. The fields are still soft beneath the sandals, and your footprints sink just slightly as you walk. You're not the only one out here. Lines of workers stretch across the field like fingers combing the earth. Some carry sacks of seed, some carry bent tools, some just carry stories they won't stop telling. Everyone moves together. Not in silence, this is Mesopotamia, but in rhythm. You join them. A woman hands you a satchel of barley seed. She's older eyes, sharp arms lean from years of tilling. If you drop any, she warns, drop it with intention. You nod. You begin sowing. The seeds fall with soft plinks into the furrows. Each one lands like punctuation. Each one holds a season's hope. Each one is a future meal, a future song, a future apology offered to whatever sky decides whether it rains. Around you, the workers talk about the canal's curve, about the new school's roof, about a man who now only speaks in proverbs, about the goats that ate the temple banner and are now mysteriously much more confident. At one point, someone mentions your name, not with grandeur, not with ceremony, just as a fact. As steady as that one, a man says, pointing with his chin. He carried the grain through the flood. He built the school roof. He talks to storytellers like they're equals. You pretend not to hear, but you do. You finish your row, then start another. By midday, the field is half planted, and your tunic clings to your back with sweat and soil. Someone offers a bowl of chilled water. You drink it like it's sacred. Maybe it is. Later, the girl who reads dreams appears, not walking, running. She's barefoot, grinning, and carrying a scroll that looks like it's been rescued from a fire or possibly started one. "Look," she says, unrolling it. You do. It's a map of the city, but not just the streets and buildings. It shows tunnels, secrets, stars, symbols you've seen only carved on temple columns or whispered into clay before it dries. It's not accurate, she admits, but it's true. You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs. It's for the school, for the children, for the city they'll build next. You ask when she grins wider. Always. By sunset, the field is finished. You stand beside the others, gazing at rows of freshly seeded earth. The wind picks up again, stronger now, tugging at hair, at robes, at everything left too loose. It carries the scent of water and ash and sweetness. Someone lights a torch. Then another. Then another. The field glows. Not in fire. In readiness. You walk back slowly through the city. The path feels familiar now. The corners. The smells. Even the sound of laughter bouncing between mud brick walls. A boy runs past you holding a bowl of figs and a frog wearing a crown made of reeds. You don't ask. At your hut, you find a gift. A small clay bowl, unfired, still soft. Inside it, a sprouting fig seed. No name, no note, just the gesture. You place it on the window ledge. You sit beside it. You wait. That night, the stars are closer than usual. The wind hums through the city like a lullaby remembered. And you sleep. Not to forget, not to escape, but because tomorrow something will grow. And you'll be there to witness it. Part 27. The sprout grows faster than you expect. By the third morning, it's leaning toward the window, a single green thread reaching through the dust and light. You touch the edge of one leaf with a fingertip. It doesn't move, but something inside you does. You don't remember planting anything, but you remember carrying seeds. You remember the mud, the water, the way your hands disappeared into the earth like they were returning to something older than your name. And maybe this is what it means to be part of a city like this. You plant without knowing. And one day something answers. You take the bowl with you to the school. Children gather around it like it's treasure. One of them whispers that the leaf is shaped like the goddess Inanna's eye. Another says it's definitely a sign of good barley to come. A third thinks it looks like a frog's tongue and tries to lick it. You stop them, but gently. The school is louder these days. Not chaotic, just full. Voices echo through the clay halls. Scribbles line the walls. One corner has been transformed into what the children call the Hall of Very Important Mistakes. They display cracked tablets, wobbly symbols, even a clay lion someone molded with 3 heads and 2 tails. You recognize the shape. It's yours. They've painted it red. You're proud. The junior scribe teaches her lessons under an awning, now using a stylus made of dried reed sharpened to a perfect point. History, she says to her students, isn't what happened. It's what survived. You think about that as you help her carry fresh tablets into the drying racks. Your fingerprints press into the clay as you work, leaving impressions you know no one will see, but you leave them anyway. At midday, the heat builds again. Not as cruel as before, but strong enough to make you pause in the shade. The storyteller joins you there. He tosses you a peeled fig and nods toward the river. You know he says the fish have returned. You raise an eyebrow. The talking one too, he adds, or at least one that listens better. You both laugh, then sit in silence. He pulls something from his pouch. A new carving, small, pale, a single word etched on its side. Again, he doesn't explain. He doesn't have to. That evening, the city gathers not for ceremony, but for play. Someone discovered a game buried beneath the Ziggurat, marked on a tablet, half-broken, mostly nonsense. It involves throwing carved sticks at each other's sandals while reciting the names of stars. You don't understand the rules, neither does anyone else, but you join. Because tonight is not for understanding. It's for presence, for showing up tired and sun-warmed and laughing until the last stick hits someone's forehead and a cheer goes up that shakes dust from the temple walls. After people lie on mats across the plaza, looking up, breathing in the stars. The girl who reads dreams sits beside you and says, "I had one last night." You glance over. "About you," she adds. You wait. You were carrying a tablet too heavy to hold, but when you set it down, it bloomed. Into figs, into a school, into a canal. You ask her what it means. She shrugs. Probably nothing. Then she stands and disappears into the dark. You walk home slowly. The air is thick with warmth and ash and fig smoke. You pass doorways glowing with soft fire. Wind chimes rattle. A woman sings to her newborn voice, worn but steady. At your hut, the sprout leans further. You turn the bowl so it can catch more moonlight. Then you sit. Then you breathe. Then you sleep. Because tomorrow someone else will need you, and you'll be ready. Part 28. You wake before dawn, not because of noise, but because of silence. The city is sleeping deeper than usual. Even the roosters are late. The wind has stilled. You step outside, barefoot, drawn by something you can't name. The air smells like dust and waiting. At the edge of the plaza, the first light cuts across the stone in long golden blades. And there, sitting alone on the fountain's rim, is the high priest. You've seen him dozens of times, always robed, always surrounded, always halfway through a sermon or a ritual or a decision. But now he looks smaller, wrapped in a simple cloth. His hands empty, his eyes on the sky. You approach quietly. He doesn't turn. He says, "The sky changes first." You follow his gaze. A pale sliver of moon still hangs above the horizon, being slowly overtaken by light. "We built everything to survive the river," he continues. "But we forgot the sky changes too." You nod, though you don't fully understand. He glances at you. You're the one who stayed. It's not a question. You sit beside him. "I used to think temples held the gods," he says. "Now I think they hold memory. And people like you. You're the clay that keeps it from crumbling." You don't answer. He doesn't need you to. When he stands and walks away, the sun finally crests the rooftops, and the city exhales. You spend the morning cleaning debris from the eastern path. It's not glamorous, just broken tiles, scattered reeds, a pair of sandals so dry and warped they resemble baked fruit. A boy helps you. He's small, curious, full of questions. Why are bricks square? Do donkeys go to the underworld? Is mud the same as soup if it's hot? You answer what you can. You make up the rest. He doesn't seem to mind. At midday, the dream girl appears at the school. She carries a bundle of cloth. Inside it, 10 small tablets freshly carved. Each one holds a question. Not a lesson, a question. One says, "What does water remember?" Another, "Can silence be loud?" The children take turns choosing. They don't have to answer. They just carry the question all day. One boy tapes his to his forehead. Another girl buries hers beside a fig tree and whispers, "You'll grow into the answer." You watch and think, this is what cities are for. In the afternoon, the canal sings. It's not a metaphor. The current, now stronger, rushes through a narrow bend just outside the grain store. Someone placed hollow reeds in the banks, and the wind pushes through them, turning water and air into song. People gather just to listen. They call it the river's flute. You sit nearby and close your eyes. You feel it in your chest, like a lullaby for grown-ups who forgot they still need rocking. Evening brings a storm, not violent, not destructive, but sudden. Thunder rolls in from the east. A single white flash cracks the sky. Then the rain begins, thick, warm drops, pounding rooftops, pounding skin, pounding time itself. You run through the streets with the others, laughing, slipping, shouting at the sky. Someone slides a clay pot beneath a spout to catch water. A boy dances barefoot in a puddle. A woman raises her arms and sings an old song so loud it competes with the thunder. You tilt your face upward and drink. The water is clean, alive, forgiving. After the rain, the city glows. Lamps reflect off every surface. The smell of wet earth mixes with charcoal, sweet herbs, and cooked onions. You pass the Ziggurat and see steam rising like incense. The storyteller finds you again. This time he carries no carving, no riddle, just a soaked, grinning face and a single sentence. The gods are laughing tonight. You believe him. You believe everything. That night you sit at your doorway, the lion charm in one hand and a cup of rainwater in the other. The sprout on your windowsill is taller, almost stubbornly so. You whisper, "Thank you," though you don't know if it's to the plant, the gods, the city, or yourself. Maybe all of them. You lie down. The sky above is clear again, and for the first time you dream not of floods or fire or hunger, but of laughter, and it carries you gently to sleep. Part 29. The next morning you are summoned to the Ziggurat. Not by decree, not with trumpets or priests or threats. Just a quiet request delivered on a strip of palm leaf by a girl no taller than your elbow. She doesn't speak, just holds it out, bows once and disappears into the dust. You read the message. It says, "Come help us remember." You don't bring anything with you. No tools, no charm, no bundle of reeds. Just your feet, your hands, your presence. The steps are still wet from the night's rain, the sun just beginning to bake the stone. You climb slowly, feeling each rise in your knees, your chest, your breath. At the summit, the high priest waits. The storyteller stands beside him, holding a tablet the size of a small door. Around them, blank clay. Dozens of them, laid out on racks, stacked in baskets, lined neatly like loaves of bread waiting to be marked. They explain the flood, the rebuilding, the new school, the canal, the songs, the laughter, all of it soon to be carved, not by one, by many. This is the Book of Return, and you have a line to add. You kneel before one of the soft tablets, stylus in hand. You think of everything you could say. You think of the donkey, the sickness, the girl and her dreams, the way the city cracked and sang and held you close without ever asking where you came from. But when you press the stylus to the clay, you write just one thing: I stayed. You set the tablet gently aside. Others are writing too now. The junior scribe, the boy who ferried the cat, the midwife with the quiet hands, the girl who buried her question under the fig tree. Each line is simple, each one sacred. One says, "I boiled mud into bricks and sang to them." Another, "I lost my father to the flood and found my name in the silence." Another still, "I learned to listen to the wind again." No one edits, no one corrects, no one needs to. By midday, the tablets cover the Ziggurat summit like scales on a giant stone creature, soft, wet, glowing in the sun. A map of memory, a skin of survival. You help move them into the shade. You help pat the clay where it cracks. You help, because you're not a guest here. You're part of the story now. That evening, the dream girl finds you at the base of the Ziggurat. She looks different, taller maybe, or just brighter. She holds out her hand. Inside it a seed, round, dark, smooth, heavy for its size. It came from the tree beside the broken wall, she says, the one that didn't fall. You nod. She closes your fingers around it. You'll know where to plant it. Then she turns and walks away. You walk the city for hours, through alleys you've cleaned, streets you've swept, walls you've repaired, fields you've planted, markets you've wandered, schools you've built. You walk until the seed grows warm in your palm, and then you stop. The corner is quiet. A broken patch of wall, a crack in the stone. Nothing special, nothing sacred, but it feels right. You kneel, you dig. You press the seed into the soil, cover it, and whisper softly, simply, grow. That night the air is cool, the city sleeps, and for the first time since you arrived, you feel the ground breathing beneath you, not with fear, but with hope. You lie down, arms behind your head, lion charm over your heart, and listen. To the sprout on your windowsill, to the canal whispering in its bed, to the seed beneath the wall, to the city remembering itself. And you fall asleep, not because you're tired, but because you're home. Part 30. The final day begins like all the others, quiet, warm, and wide. You open your eyes to the sound of sandals brushing earth, the soft thump of someone setting down a water jar, and a baby's first laugh cutting through the morning air like birdsong. The fig sprout on your windowsill now has 2 full leaves. You nod to it as if greeting a friend. You don't know it's the final day. No one ever does. You stretch dress and walk into the city you helped rebuild, and it greets you back. The school walls are dry now. The murals have expanded figures, dancing ships, flying gods with crooked teeth and children's hands. Someone has added a new wing to the building, a covered space with a long bench where people come not to learn, but to rest. A new tradition. You see the storyteller seated there. He waves. You wave back. He holds up a tablet with a fresh carving, a lion curled around a sprouting tree. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. You head next to the canal where the water hums low and smooth. The reeds have grown taller. Fish dart through the current, fat and smug. You pass the old scribe's corner. The junior scribe has taken over, now teaching new apprentices how to press straight lines into wet clay without breaking their wrists. She calls out to you, I saved a space in the archive. You raise your eyebrows. She grins. For your next story. You smile and keep walking. At the western gate, you find a small group gathering, young, old, in between. They carry tools, baskets, laughter. They're headed out to expand the orchard. Not just fig trees this time. Tamarisk, date palm, maybe a patch of garlic if the soil permits. Someone asks if you'll join them. You shake your head gently. Not today. You return home before the sun climbs too high. You gather your things, which are not many. A worn tunic, the wind charm, the lion carving with wings, the stone marked again, the clay bowl with its defiant little sprout. You wrap them in reed cloth and press them to your chest. Then you sit and wait, because something is coming. You don't know what, but you've learned to recognize the silence before it arrives. In the afternoon, a breeze passes through the city. Not harsh, not cold, but full. It moves doors on their hinges. It bends branches toward the east. It carries the scent of silt, fig sap, and distant fire. The people feel it. They pause. They look at the sky. Then they begin to walk, not in panic, not in haste, just purpose, toward the plaza. So you go too. When you arrive, the dream girl is already there. She stands at the center, eyes closed, palms up, facing the wind. She opens them and looks directly at you. It's time, she says, for what you ask. She smiles, to be remembered. You stand in the plaza as the people gather one by one, voice by voice. The tablets are brought out again. Not the old ones, new ones, blank, but not for long. Each person steps forward and presses a hand into the clay. Not to write, to leave a mark. No words, just presence. You do the same. When it's done, the dream girl collects them all into a basket woven from storm reeds and places it beneath the fig tree at the temple steps. And then the bells ring, not for worship, not for warning, for closure, for beginning. And so you sit beside the fig tree, your city around you, your name carried not in ink, but in memory. You are not famous, you are not a statue, but you are known by every step you took, by every mistake you made, by every moment you stayed. The city does not end, the story does not close, but you can rest now. You lie on your mat. The wind charm taps once against the wall. The lion carving falls gently from its shelf and lands beside your hand. The sprout leans into the sun, and everything is still.